Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 272. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge on the comic forums, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim. This isn't the episode we started doing at all. So this is the Sensei of the Whatnot Segulin and the Duke of You Know.
How's it going, eh?
This is
the
not
best laid plans of mice and men often go astray.
We didn't do what we wanted to do at all. We're recording a whole other show this weekend to do the one we were going to do. How funny is this? We've got an over 3-hour show here talking about the New 52. We didn't plan to talk about the New 52 this episode at all. This came off of, we decided on this episode to start it off by listening to listener. We had 6 listener voicemails, and they were thematically about Flashpoint, and then the New 52, and then Justice League reactions and stuff. So I wanted to air those right away because it's really great to have your participation in the podcast. Well, partway through the discussion, Jim and I started to talk about Action Comics #1 because one of the phone calls led to that. Both of us were like, I want to talk about this now. We kept stopping ourselves and it just didn't feel right. So we just went and did it. And then we did that. We were like, well, kind of organically, we started talking about Batgirl #1 and Batwing #1. So this turned into a whole show kicking off our exploration of the New 52. So this episode is listener voicemails, Batwing 1, Batgirl 1, and Action Comics #1, which we were going to finish League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. So we never got to that because it's like now 10 o'clock p.m. and, we both have to work tomorrow. And I want to get this out to you tonight. So it's really funny how this just turned into something that we did not expect at all. So Jim and I are going to record again this weekend and record the second part of League of Extraordinary Gentlemen and also include on that the segment with Ted Sikora about Apama that we were planning to release along with that. So that episode's coming. So we're going to get you another episode hopefully sooner than we were expecting to be back. And part of the reason I'm back in the beginning of my school year, so I intended on getting you a little short segment sooner than this. It just didn't work out this week for my schedule, but I want to get you our regular weekly episode. And you're getting us looking at the New 52. So thank you to our listeners for kind of driving this with your phone calls. We really appreciate your participation in the show. We are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network and the League of Comic Book Podcasts. Our sponsors for this episode are DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Jim, over at DCBService.com, people right now can start looking at the new deals that are coming from DCB Service for September. They're just being released as of when we're recording this. So go check DCBService.com for the specials. But one other thing I want to remember, if you're buying digitally, remember to use their handy-dandy link up there. Because if you click on that and use your Comixology account right from DCBService.com, they get credit for it. So, it actually goes towards helping them out as well. So it's a way to, help our sponsor get a kick from the sales of the New 52 books. So please support the people that are supporting our podcast by considering buying your Comixology books right from DCBService.com. Also sponsoring us this episode is InStockTrades.com. And speaking of Batgirl, because we talk about Batgirl #1 on there, they have Showcase Presents Batgirl Volume 1, and they also have Batgirl The Greatest Stories Ever Told. Showcase Presents Batgirl Volume 1, the trade paperback, is regularly $16.99, 38% off, only $10.53. And Batgirl, The Greatest Stories Ever Told is $19.99 regularly, 38% off, only $12.39. So if you're into this whole Batgirl thing and maybe you don't have a lot of exposure to the Barbara Gordon Batgirl, or maybe you're a longtime fan of the Barbara Gordon Batgirl and you want to kind of get into the whole Batgirl vibe, there's 2 great volumes. You can start reading more Barbara Gordon right now. Remember, orders of $50 or more at InStockTrades.com give you free shipping. And I want to thank DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com for continuing to support the show. James, what kind of a podcast are we?
Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth into the plotline, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're discussing on the show. So if you haven't read the books, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
Just a little setup. Some of the recording you're going to hear right now is us when we were planning to do League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. So you're going to hear the kickoffs of our initial discussions talking about just our experiences with the New 52, and then leading into discussions about Action Comics, and then listener voicemails and things like that. So you're going to see what led to our tangent that I know ultimately got on the New 52. But, it comes from a point of passion, which is why we decided to go this route, because passionately the two of us were in this zone, we were in this place, and it honestly is better for podcasting, for your listening experience, to go with where our heads were right now, rather than trying to shove in a League of Extraordinary Gentlemen segment that won't give it the same vibe that the first part had. So we're going to be back with that our next episode, and here we go.
To the Batmobile. Let's go. Atomic batteries to power. Turbines to speed. You're ready to move up.
Jim, before we kick into our show, I've got a lot of voicemails this week, and I know you and I are focusing mainly on the second part of our League of Extraordinary Gentlemen review, but you can't help but talk about the New 52. This was a huge week. Granted, last week was Flashpoint number 5, and then Justice League number 1, but this week was the first week of all the new books. And what was that experience like for you? I bought everything digitally. And I bought them through DCB Service. I clicked on their digital partner store. And that was honestly a lot of the driving factor of me going digital, was the fact that I knew I was going to be able to still support our show sponsor. But here's the funny thing. When I talked to you about it, I was wondering, am I going to borrow some and wait for the 30 days to do the $1.99? I bought every single title at full boat because I couldn't, and honestly, because I couldn't wait. As of right now, this is Thursday right now that you and I are recording this. There's only 2 of the titles I haven't read yet. I couldn't stop reading them. They came out yesterday. I could not stop reading them. And the only reason why I didn't read the other 2 is time. I just haven't had the chance to sit down. Tonight I will read both of the other 2. So I've read all of the New 52 books so far except for 2. What was your experience, though? Because we were having this great discussion yesterday on the phone. You went searching. You've already got them pre-ordered through DCB Service. So today, did your box come already, or is it not here yet, or...
As of right now, it hasn't come yet, but sometimes it comes a little later than other times, or I may actually get it on Friday because of the Monday holiday. So, 1, I wasn't about to wait for it. 2, I'm going to be lending these comics out to other people, so I'm kind of, I wanted to have a second set to lend out. That way they can take their time in reading it, and I'm not pressuring them to give it back to me, etc. So, plus I really, really did not want to wait, and I thought it'd be kind of neat and interesting to see how things are going at the shop. So I went to my first shop, and they had about half the titles left. The rest had sold out, and the owner was talking how he double and triple ordered some stuff. And Action Comics, I think, was one of the triple orders that he did, and he sold out of it.
Wow.
So they're doing really good on the sales on the first issue, which was really cool to see, but it was a little painful for me because then I had to go to shop number 2. So I'm driving from one...
What shops did you go to? I mean, there's nothing... We don't have to, not give them names. Where did you go?
Oh, I went to Comic Heaven up in Willoughby, then the Great Lakes Mall shop. I can't remember what the name of it is.
But in Metro, Ohio, there's a shop at the mall here too. Because I think it's fascinating because I wasn't thinking about that because I ordered them digitally and I was sitting at my computer screen during my lunch break at work. They weren't out yet, because there's a certain release time that they release all the new books. They had updated the new releases for the back issue titles on the Comixology app, but they hadn't been released yet. So I felt like I was standing outside the comic shop when I was looking at my computer screen, and I'm sitting there like, okay, where are they going to be? Because when you go to DCB Service, you can actually pull that up. So I had a similar experience to you. But go ahead. So you went to the Great Lakes Mall. What happened there?
Well, I got almost all of them, and actually, he even had the variant cover for Action Comics. So I was able to pick up that as well because I was like, you know what? It looks really good. It's Superman in the armored costume, and I was like, you know what? This is some good art. I'm grabbing this one as well. So I, kind of an impulse buy. I was sitting right there, and you got to jump on it. And then I still had one left, which was the Detective Comics. So I had to go to the third shop, the one up the street from you, also in Menor. Just had to zip up the one road, and to finally got the last one there. So it took me 3 comic shops, over an hour of driving around the different parts of the city because the way Cleveland area is laid out. These are all different, suburbs or sections of suburbs. So it was a pretty good, healthy drive for me, going around. But it was kind of funny because I'm laughing because I know I have all these things ordered. I have everything coming, and I'm was talking to my folks because you had called the house looking for me, and it was just like my mom's just laughing, going, she's like, "Isn't all this coming?" I'm like, "Yeah, eventually it's coming tomorrow. I just got to get it now."
See, I love that though. And did you consider it worth it?
Oh, definitely. And every shop is having really good sales. I know up at the Comic Heaven, I took like the last of a couple of them. So he, even after I left, he had even less left on the shelf. Every one of them had only like 1 or 2 issues left, and there's even of some of the stuff like Stormwatch and Animal Man and the other titles that I figured wouldn't sell as well. Those still had just like 1 or 2 issues left, and everybody ordered heavy on these things.
Dude, Animal Man was terrific. It blew me away. I know. And first of all, there's a number of the titles that blew me away, like Batgirl. The ones I was expecting to blow me away, Action Comics, they did. But Animal Man was one I was interested in reading because I've never read Animal Man, like, other than trades. And the miniseries that you and I have both followed on the show, I've never read solo Animal Man a day and date, other than miniseries. This, when it came out, I was like, oh my gosh, is that good? It's Jeff Lemire who does, Sweet Tooth. Oh, it's good. And I mean, we're going to talk in depth about it, but that was one, when I read that, I was like, it was honestly on my second tier of readings, where I read through, Batgirl I was expecting to blow me away, and it did. It was outstanding. Everything that I expected from Gail Simone. The art's great. But, this one I read in like the second tier ones, thinking that I'm going to enjoy it and all that. That was a home run. Green Arrow was it's Green Arrow. I've been enjoying Green Arrow. I thought J.T. Krull's run recently was really good. I enjoyed Green Arrow, Black Canary before that. That stuff was all, stuff that I enjoyed. But I haven't had a Green Arrow where, like, I've been blown away in a while, where it was like, wow, this is really cool, Green Arrow. And that's growing up as a kid, Green Arrow was one of my favorite characters. That one blew me away. This has been really cool. So I'm excited for you because I'm sure when you were reading, because I think you only read a couple of them so far, right?
Yeah, I've only gotten through a couple of them because ran out of some time yesterday because I spent most of my time driving around to get them. I only have limited time because I got to get up early for work. So, yeah, I jumped on Action Comics, got the Batgirl, Batwing. Oh, that was good. I've gotten through Detective just now. I've just started reading Stormwatch, and so I'm slowly working through them.
Stormwatch is very cool.
Yeah.
Did you read the whole issue yet?
Not yet. I'm just at the beginning of it.
I'm not going to spoil a thing, but boy, does it end good.
Cool.
That doesn't spoil anything other than that you got something to look forward to. Actually, based on previous discussions you and I've had, you will in particular like the ending.
Oh, cool.
So, and you'll see why at the end. I'm keeping that deliberately vague. These have been really great releases. Actually, the only two I haven't read, I didn't get a chance to read OMAC yet. I'm very excited to read that. What happened was when I got to my second tier ones, I just started reading them in the order they were in on my app. So the Static Shock and OMAC are the only two I have not read as of this recording right now. So, and that wasn't anything as far as not desire to read them. I just started going in order. And those are two that I'm really anxious to read tonight.
Yeah, I was actually pleased that it was hard for me to find Static Shock.
Oh, is that the one you had trouble with?
That was one of the ones that I had trouble with, yeah. That one sold out at the first shop. So I had to go to the second one, and at the second one I took the last one of that. So that was another one that did well. So I was very pleased and kind of, surprised by it.
I liked, the one that I really liked that I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about was the Men of War. Mm-hmm. The one, the Sergeant Rock one.
Yeah.
I read that today. It's a little bit, it's $1 more because it's got a co-feature, which I always liked anyway. And that's a great book. The Sergeant Rock stories, the son of Sergeant Rock story. It's Men of War is what it's called. Yeah. And the son of Sergeant Rock story in it is absolutely terrific. I mean, it's a great series. We're going to be talking about all these in depth, but I just, I can't help but gush a little bit about I was very satisfied this week. There's not a one of them that I was like, boy, why did they do this? This book isn't, one of those one. It's not one that I would have chosen for them to release. There's a great balance to the books that were released this week so far, And that's what I really like about them. Like, everything felt different, felt fresh, and I really like that. Because that's kind of the big thing for me when I was reading these. I had to say to myself, am I going to be sitting there saying, I wish I was reading this from, the line that just ended? And that was really an interesting experience during that. Because Action Comics in particular, I was worried about that.
Yeah, big time. I had a lot of fear going into that, and definitely after reading that issue, I'm like, okay, this is going to be interesting. This is going to be cool. I'm looking forward to this. I want more. And when you finish the book and you start waiting, okay, when's issue 2 coming out? When you're already hooked into it, you already want more, that's a really good sign, and I was really glad.
Can we talk a little bit about it? I don't want to wait. Come on. It was so cool. Dude, doesn't have all his powers yet.
No, that was something I really was like, wait a minute. He's not flying. He can't fly.
He leaps tall buildings. Yeah. But it's not just the flying part. It's all of his powers are not, it's part of the maturing process for Superman. He's growing into his powers. So he's Superman, and he's got these powers, but we actually see him, taking some damage along the way. And I really enjoyed that aspect of this. I mean, it's it's a book that's, I didn't know how I was going to feel about that. And I like that it feels like a different take on Superman versus a retelling of the same origin we've seen before, because it's been the origin that we've seen in recent years with the version of Superman. This actually goes really back to the roots of Superman with the leap tall building and stuff like that, because I can't remember reading an origin that explores it this way.
Well, they were saying in the one shop they were talking about how this kind of follows, some of the original Action Comics #1 storyline.
Yeah.
Where it really it's a good mimicking of it. It's not like a retelling of that, but it does have that same feel and same type of vibe to it.
But today.
Yeah, but today.
Did you get the Superman Chronicles? Did you get any of those?
No.
So you didn't get any of those, you know what I'm talking about, the ones that were releasing the Superman books in chronological order?
Right.
I've been getting those, and I've been reading them. And there was that book Tom DeHaven wrote. Mm-hmm. I gave you the paper.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they're listener status. That one is more set in that era,
right,
where he couldn't fly. It was the leaping tall buildings, that type of thing. I like this because, first of all, he is going to be able to fly. We know that in Superman, it's set in present day. This is set in the past. This is actually, this book takes place before Justice League of America. Or Justice League, I should say. It's not Justice League of America, Justice League. They at the convention panels from San Diego were saying that this is like the zero issue, so to speak, of the DC universe, this new 52. Kind of takes place beforehand. I actually like that kind of clarification as far as what we're reading. So that helped me kind of see we're in a world where, people don't know how to react to Superman. I really liked that the general public and the police and the armed forces don't know how to react to a guy with this kind of power levels.
Well, this is a very realistic reaction. When you get somebody who can do what he does, it's not even just blocking bullets or moving fast, bending a gun in inhumane ways. We're talking some major power. He took damage, but he took damage from a tank. It took something of that magnitude to actually kind of scuff him and to give him a little bit of bruise. And even that wasn't that large, that much of damage being done to him. And it was a freaking tank. Right. He stops the speeding train. It's more powerful than the locomotive. I love that little tie back into it. But it was everything just bam, bam, bam. They kept dropping on him, and he kept taking it. And this isn't the first time they've tried to do stuff like this, and he always gets through it. Definitely see just the scientific/military mindset being very paranoid about a guy who can do all this, especially one this isn't the same kind of super Boy Scout. He's not as refined as the Superman we're used to. He's still getting his groove together. It's the way he gets the confession out of the bad guy. He's basically dangling him over the over the edge of the building. That's not exactly the most noblest of ways of getting about, because Clark doesn't completely know how to go about doing it. He's not completely, up on with what the police need, how they need the evidence, etc. I thought that was just a great way of showing his inexperience and his youth, as he's facing all this, because he's a little bit doing the heavy-handed approach because he hasn't completely realized just exactly how much awe-inspirement and how the hero side of him can bring out even better results.
I'm going to love seeing the contrast of him in Superman #1 when it's released. To see what he's like present day. Because obviously present day, it's going to be the mature version of this guy who's been through all this. So it's going to be interesting to see that contrast. And I know the Grant Morrison book is going to eventually be set in present day. This is just a look at how, he started off at first. It's funny how, after reading this issue, I'm really cool with the, the work boots and the jeans and the... I'm like, okay, I'm into this. Which, it's an interesting contrast because I'm still having trouble with the armor suit. But I'm not having any trouble with this look. I'm like, this is insane. The armored suit actually has been very well constructed to be like, his costume and, the art. I can't argue with the art at all. Artistically, the drawing is fantastic of it in Justice League, when I see it there. So, I get the beauty of it and everything like that. But, it's the traditionalist in me. He's running around in jeans and work boots in this one. And why am I fine with that? I think it's the issue. It sold me out it immediately.
Well, and I'm an armor guy. I like the armor guy, and I have no issues with the jeans and the work boot. I think it fits him at this stage of his life. I wouldn't want him to keep that the entire time because, you see that scene where the people kind of step up and form a human shield and block him. He just went through and saved all those people from that building, and they're going to return the favor. They're like, hey, you're trying to kill the guy who just saved us. And you kind of see that look in...
Inspiring. I dug that too.
Oh, man. And right there, as he gets that, I could see, him understanding what exactly inspiration, and that would kind of lead to the changing of the costume, a little bit formalizing, a little bit, looking a little bit, different. And I think that's kind of going to be part of the evolution of the costume into the armor. I think this is definitely this is going to be something neat, and I'm really looking forward to it.
One of our listeners asked on Facebook, and I apologize, I'm forgetting who it was at the moment. I just saw it today, it was in my email. How does it work digitally? Are you stuck to just using it in the apps on like an iPad or something like that, or can you read it anywhere? The way that it works, you can read them on an app, through Android or through Apple's iPad or, iPhones or whatever. But also that same collection, you have an account with Comixology. So when you buy them, whether you buy them on your iPad or you buy them direct, see, what I'm doing now is because DCB Services is a show sponsor and friends of the show, I'm buying books from them. I've also bought some books from my local, Comic Heaven, because, I really enjoyed the experience of that Midnight thing. So every so often I'll go over to Comic Heaven and I'll buy a couple issues from them. But the entire New 52, I bought every single issue of it from our show sponsor, DCBService.com, because they sponsor us. And I bought it right from their site. It goes into my Comixology account, which means I can read that on my computer screen right from DCB Service. So when I click on that, it takes me right into the app on my computer screen. So I've got right now Action Comics #1 open on my computer. I can magnify it. I can zoom in. There's a guided view, and what the guided view is it'll zoom in on the panels and guide you through the story that way with up-close look at the panels and the dialogue. So like if your computer screen is small, for example, it will zoom in on those things for you. But then you can click out of that and you can see the full page, full screen. So, there's a lot of different options as far as controlling what your reading experience is like. The cool thing about the version digitally, what I liked about it was I get variant covers. So you've got the main cover, the one where you see Superman charging, down the street, where he's getting shot at, the traditional cover. The next cover that you see when you open up the book is the sketch version of that. Then you go to the Jim Lee variant of Superman in the armored suit, which, again, that's beautiful in that.
Oh, yeah.
So, when I say I have issues with it, I want to clarify, I love the art, and it's growing on me. It's just going to take me some time to get used to this. I'm liking the story, so I'll get used to it, because I like the story. And that's ultimately what is the selling point for me with a new costume. I got to like the story. And then you go into this guy flying in, jumping in, I should say, saying, and rats with guns, I'm your worst nightmare. The shot of his eyes and him there, it instantly sold me on this whole jeans and whatever look, for his temporary, getting to know you look. And I loved learning about him from the police perspective. How are they viewing him and what he's doing? But I mean, I love that they're coming in and seeing the damage. The guy through the wall, the guy's tied up on the floor. Don't let him get me. Just great stuff.
Oh, yeah, and I really did like when they picked up the machine gun. They're like, how can anybody do something this to a gun? And it's the power levels there. And I like seeing him flex his muscles, so to speak. And even, you talk about just the red eyes, and he has the moment where he's talking to the one detective, hey, you may want to calm down. You got that ulcer is just ready to burst. You see the blue eyes covering, so he's doing the X-ray vision thing, just jumping back and forth between it. I thought that, just that Clark playing with it, having a little bit of fun with it, was something I really like to see, because it's, as we said, this is him in the beginning. He's getting a comfort level with how he wants to present himself.
Action Comics #1, Grant Morrison writer, Rags Morales penciler, Rick Bryant inker, Brad Anderson colorist, Pat Brousseau letterer, Rags Morales and Brad Anderson on the cover, Jim Lee, Scott Williams, and Alex Sinclair on that variant. Will Moss is the associate editor, Matt Idelson editor, and Superman created by Siegel and Schuster. Seeing as we're organically turned into chatting about this. That double page of him holding the guy over his head, somebody save me, because that ain't Superman. I'm a Rags Morales fan. The whole art team, just really, what a great combination. It just looks fantastic there. This is a Superman I like reading. I mean, this is a guy who, right off the bat, I'm enjoying him. I will say this, being fair and honest, do I still miss the Superman that's married to Lois Lane, the one that we had in there? Absolutely. But I like this one. So I'm in that place with it. There's things, and I know as I'm reading the New 52, there's going to be things that I'm missing along the way, but I'm going to say these books are very satisfying so far. I'm really enjoying what I'm reading. So, as the fan, that's always my concern. Am I digging what I'm reading now? And I am. I mean, there's a lot to like in this one. His whole way of interrogating this guy, jumping down, getting him to talk that way, I thought was terrific.
Yeah, here's the thing, though. Mm-hmm. I got a feeling that's not going to stand up in court. I just call me crazy, but I can kind of see a lawyer being able to talk their way around it, and I think that's going to be one of the things that kind of changes how his approach is. When he starts seeing that, he's getting these arrests, but they're not sticking, and the bad guys are right back on the street doing the exact same thing they were doing before. I think that's going to be part of Clark's maturity, because we do see he does have the investigative reporter in him. There is, that journalistic type of skill set that he has. So he's going to start, realizing what he's doing, learning from, his mistakes and adjusting for the future. And that's something else I'm really looking forward to seeing. I want to see Clark Kent stories as well as Superman stories. And we've already, from issue 1, we've got some cool Superman stuff, and we have some cool Clark Kent moments. And I was really glad to see we're getting both of them.
Well, I do think it's important while they're doing this to show us Clark Kent modern day. Superman modern day in the other book. This is going to be kind of a nice balance of, because I'm really enjoying the accessibility of seeing him learn as he's going along. This is a guy, he doesn't have the Justice Society to go off of, other superheroes to go off of as far as role models and experience. He has to feel his way out and kind of see what being a superhero means to him. And I think that's really, what is the point of putting him in the jeans and the boots and, showing this kind of like put together outfit that wasn't put together by Ma Kent? This really is about him kind of, like what we saw in Batman Begins, where Bruce hadn't had the full bat outfit yet. He had that kind of mask over his head, and he first confronted Gordon for the first time and was running out of the Gotham. Remember when he first did his jumping? I loved that sequence of events because you saw a Batman that wasn't experienced yet. And as those movies went on, Batman more experienced. I'm liking this for that same reason. You get the idea that this is really a good fella, but also he's got some inexperience to him. This is a Superboy. That really is. This is how I'm looking at this guy. He has not done this for very long. I get the idea that these isolated things have probably happened his entire life where he's done stuff like this, but not on the level where he's trying to do it as formally as he's doing here. I love the fun of it. Like the can't hang around, guys, but go for it. You know, that bit, catch me if you can. And you see him smiling. He's just going, like, there's an adventure to this. It's fun to, you know, there's a fun factor to being Superman. And you see the person with the phone, the cell phone, like, wouldn't you do that? You see this guy speeding by. It's Superman. I thought this guy was a legend. I'm taking a picture of him. This was great. I loved that fun factor in this whole thing, which Superman should be fun. You know, I mean, that's one of the aspects of this. And that's, honestly, I got to say, it's part of the consistency of what I've been reading in a lot of these books of the New 52. Fun, excitement. You know, it's great to read these comics again. You know, this is the dark. Yes, it's a dark world, but these are people that are bringing a brightness to it. You know, and I'm not saying the world should change to all of a sudden be some brighter world because of it. They're the brightness in the world. They're making you feel hope. You know, I loved when you were saying the people who were all of a sudden rallying behind him because he just rescued them. That's the kind of thing I want to see in that dark world. I want to see people who are being inspired by this guy. Great moments in this whole thing. What'd you think of Luthor?
I digged Luthor. I really digged him. Still had the same feel of Lex that I know and love, so I'm all in on this guy. I'm all in on how they're going with him. He's not the multi-billionaire, power-hungry person, but he's still the same Lex. He still has that same mindset. He still has that same driven goal. And I like the fact that he's already recognizing Clark as this invasive entity that will bring down humanity. So it's laying great groundwork for him to be, you know, Clark's great nemesis and just everything that they're, you know, that is a great Clark and Lex story. Oh, I'm looking forward to some of those stuff.
Sam Lane and Lex being together was interesting because I liked that Sam Lane didn't feel like he was totally on Luthor's side. I didn't feel like they were all on the same page. This was something where the two of them were working together because of what Lex brought to the table. And, you know, this really is a military operation where it would make sense that the government's looking at people like Superman coming into power and, you know, is this something that can be created? Can we use something like this? How do we handle these type of people being on our soil? This would be a part of military intelligence. And I really, you know, who wouldn't be keeping an eye on this? And, you know, would have a variety of different reactions. But I love that Lex, again, it's all about Lex's motives for doing all this. You know, Lex isn't going the noble route, or, you know, maybe he thinks he is. But to a certain extent, he's willing to sacrifice so many to accomplish his goals. So I'm going to take the nobility out of it. There isn't that. Lex feels he might be right for doing that, but that doesn't make him noble. That means that's ego, I think, that plays into Lex a lot of times.
Well, you know, one of the things with Lex is, you know, he's thinking species. He's thinking the overall. So, you know, you got to break in a couple eggs to make an omelet, and that's how he's looking at it. You know, he's got to figure out how to defeat this invasive entity, you know, that's going to bring down mankind. And he's willing to make some sacrifices, including Lois Lane, which I love the fact that, you know, General Lane got really miffed that, hey, you knew this was going to happen, and you put my daughter in harm's way. I was so glad that, you know, General Lane didn't look. He's not so into the anti-Superman mission that he would lose sight of civilian casualties, especially his family. Yeah,
exactly. You know, I want to comment on the artwork again in that shot where we've got Superman with the people rallying behind him. You know, because these guys are standing up to a tank. I mean, which shows you just how much Superman's inspired them. You know, at this point, they're like, what are you doing? This guy just saved our lives, saved my kids. What is wrong with you people? And you see, like, he's smiling behind them. You know, when they're, like, all standing there together, you know, there's, like, a grin there, that type of thing. There's, like, a camaraderie to him with the people in that moment as they're getting angry. There's a camaraderie there. There's some – I just loved the way that shot was, and I loved how it was colored, how there's, like, to the left, you know, there's the people are a little bit in the shadows, but those surrounding him, there's, like, a light that's kind of focusing on Superman there, and them, you know, around him, the ones that are immediately close to him. I liked the light sourcing use in that sequence because there was something about that shot. I'm like, wow, this feels very iconic. And that's something I really enjoyed about this because I really walked into this one. I was very tentative, just in the sense that I love Lois and Clark being married. I love the ending of Grounded. I thought that was absolutely fabulous. So I walked in this one. When I say tentative, I knew you got the creative team. Everything was right. as far as a layout for a book. So I knew I was going to find something that I would enjoy. This is another one, I did not expect to be blown away by this one. I don't know if you've had that same kind of vibe walking into it. Page after page after page of turning this one, I'm like, wow, this is so good. I expected, honestly, it was on my lunch break when I finally ended up reading this one, and I expected to start paging through it. I didn't expect to read the whole thing. I couldn't put it down.
See, I kind of knew. Well, I didn't know what was going to happen, where it was going to go. I didn't, because like you, I was really happy with where Superman ended, where Superman was at, and that was, we talked about it was those bittersweet moments where we finish a great Superman story, and we're like, but this isn't going to continue. Where are we going to go next? I think, we'd heard enough commentary from creative teams that I was confident, I was feeling positive about the new 52. But so going into it, I wasn't like, I was worried, but I wasn't like scared, if that makes any sense.
And I wasn't either. So I'm not trying to say that.
Yeah, and just reading it though, I tell you, it really pulled me in. It had me going. I was thinking that, with some of these titles, maybe it's going to take me a story arc for me to get the groove of things going. And I was thinking maybe with Action Comics, it would take until present day before I would see more of the Superman I'm used to. But I'm right from get-go enjoying this. I'm liking the story, and I want more. I want to see where this goes. I want to see this Clark Kent, this Superman mature. I want these stories, and it's when I start getting excited, and I want to read the stories. I want to read issue 2, 3, 4, see where this goes. That's a very positive thing, a very good thing, and I'm very happy.
I took home papers to grade because of this book.
What?
Because I took home papers to grade because of this book. Because, like a lot of times, after I'm done eating lunch, I will grade papers because I don't want to take them home with me. Because that lunch break is my break time. So, I have an option to use it however I'd like because that's my time, like any other lunch break for any other job. Well, a lot of times I'll use that time to get some things done so I don't have to take them home at nighttime to grade them. With this one, I'm like, oh, forget this. I'm taking home stuff tonight. I ended up reading it cover to cover because of it. I mean, and it's lines like this. We used to have laws in this town, like gravity. You remember gravity, right? I mean, that stuff like that. I've loved it. It was, it wasn't just Superman. That's the part I really enjoyed. The whole cast, from tiny supporting cast members like the military reaction to him, really having this like shocked reaction because this is a new guy to them. So that newness was felt by the people surrounding him as well, was something that I really captivated me in this whole thing.
Yeah, I liked his landlady too. That was something that she kind of had a Ma Kent feel to her when I initially saw her, but then she's still like, oh yeah, hey Clark, oh by the way, remember rent is due. And I thought that was just a great kind of transition where she's talking to him, she's being nice, she's being flattering, saying, oh, you're such a nice little boy. Oh, by the way, I do need that money. So there was that business side of things. There was that whole, hey, I like you, but I'll still evict you.
Changing the jeans, oversized sweatshirt, messing up the hair when he put on the glasses, little tiny details and all that, just building Clark Kent in a few sequences. The iconic taking the cape, because a lot of times we don't see him take the cape off separately. I'd like seeing him take off the cape and roll that up too. Yeah. There was a lot of tiny details in just a few panels there that I really appreciated in the building of Clark Kent in those sequences. And I totally agree with you about the landlady. I thought she was absolutely marvelous. But it really just a beautiful book as far as creating Clark Kent and why people wouldn't know. And also having to create what happened to his face, because that wasn't ignored. Superman got beat up. I mean, and this is something we haven't usually had to see with Superman, as far as some form of bruising, battle damage or something like that. In this case, because he isn't as... I'm curious to see what his power set's going to be like in present day. Because we know he can fly in present day. What is his power like in the Superman book that Perez is writing?
Well, you think about it, when he first came on the scene was 6 months ago, because the military makes the one comment about how when he first came on the scene 6 months ago, he was powerful. He keeps getting stronger.
Yeah.
He keeps... and the powers keep, building and building and building. So eventually we're going to get it to the level where he's at now. Where it's the Superman we know, and we understand.
Well, but that's my question, though, is he the Superman, is he at the level that we know before? Because we know there's a story behind the suit of armor, so what does this mean? And I'm with you in the sense that it might be the Superman we know pre this New 52, but are there new twists and turns that we don't know about? I don't know. I'm curious. And that's the way I should be feeling right now. Like, I'm into all this, seeing, like, what is the whole dynamic like? What's the vibe like? What is, this is fun. I like that I actually care about having those questions answered. I'm not worried. You mentioned worry before. I was never scared about this book. I don't want to say that. Because, like I said, the creative team had me sold. It was the excitement of actually reading it. Like, a book blows me away when I'm turning page after page and it's drawing me in. I enjoy my comics. I mean, you know this from the show. We don't talk about every single DC published book. We're going to do it with all the New 52. It's been a while since we've done that. But we usually pick out books that, you and I really enjoy reading and stuff like that. But then there's a smaller number of them that blow you away, make you giddy, make you go, wow, this feels iconic. It feels like, this felt like that, page after page. For a first issue of a new series with a new creative team reimagining, Superman's beginning, because we've seen this story, sort of, and I love that I'm like, I haven't seen this story. That's what I'm saying where I say sort of, like, I'm like, wow, I'm reading an origin of Superman, his first, like, appearance on the scene that I don't feel like I've read before. And yet it feels just like that same character. So there's that whole vibe to this whole thing. I'm almost leery to say this, that it felt like, just fantastic Ultimate Superman. And that's not I'm almost leery to say that because I don't want that to seem like I'm knocking it when I'm saying that, because it's the farthest thing that I'm doing here. I feel like, one of the things I liked about Ultimate Spider-Man when it came on the scene, because I think that's a marvel. The original Ultimate Spider-Man, when it first kicked off, and that's not knocking anything that's come afterwards, but I remember picking up the first issue of that and getting this feeling. That whole creative team was just spot on. They captured the core values of what I think makes Spider-Man exciting. When I was done with the book, I wanted to be Spider-Man. When I was done with this issue, I wanted to be Superman. We talk about on the show sometimes about how you wouldn't want to be a superhero because of all the responsibility and all that stuff. We've mentioned the realities of that. This took all that away. I wanted to leap tall buildings at the end of this one. Like, there was something cool. Like, Clark, you admire him. You want to be him. And that's, I don't know, Superman sometimes feels inaccessible to me. I don't get that. This guy I get. I'm like, I want to be him.
Did you tie a blanket around your neck and start running around your house?
Dude, I would have been... No, I was at work. You got to remember, I would have been fired. I was on... Granted, I was on my lunch break, but even that, like, is pushing it a bit. Because my lunch break was in my classroom. So... yeah.
I'm just picturing in my head you quickly lock the door, put on your cape, do a couple laps around the classroom, stand on your desk, whoosh.
But here's the vibe, dude. I read this, then the kids come in, at the end of my lunch break. I had like about 15 minutes after I was done reading this to wrap up, because my kids were at recess time. Because I have lunch and then my kids are out at recess. So this was my break time. I read this, then I was getting ready for math. I was on fire during math. It's fun. No, I'm serious, dude. Because, a break in any job, when you take your break time, sometimes that's your refresh, your recharge. Then you come back into work and you're motivated again. Dude, I'm going to, during my lunch break, I'm going to read more. Because I got to tell you, this really recharged, because I was eating while I was reading this. And I got to tell you, this was just phenomenal. I was like really excited to teach in the afternoon, and my kids were in there. This got me pumped up and motivated, which is what you want from a good book, movie, whatever. That type of thing gets you motivated. This Clark Kent, I loved. Lois and Jimmy. I liked the Lois's competitive nature, and also thinking about what she would do. Like, this is a kill or be killed type of market where you've got to break the story before everyone else, and people will throw you off the trail they're not going to help you. They're not going to say, hey, let me help Lois Lane get the big story. If I've got a lead, I'm going to get the big story. And if I can take somebody who's a rival off that lead so they don't release it when I do, I will do that. So Lois's mentality that Clark's doing this, trying to get them off the train because he knows something, the quote-unquote he knows something, I really liked the vibe off of that because he's working for a rival.
Yeah, that's the other thing. I was, again, seeing that dynamic, because I kept saying how I didn't want to lose the marriage. Seeing this story getting told and seeing the way they're rivals, they're competing against each other, but knowing in your head that the two of them will eventually get together, we're going to get to see that courtship again. We're going to get to see that whole, tale of them, falling for each other, him working for the planet again. And it's, there's all this stuff that I want to see. And I'm just kind of really thrilled to get this, when, the Ultimate line started doing, Earth 1 Superman, when we saw the Jimmy Olsen was kind of that daredevil with the camera. Yeah. I thought that was just so wonderful because the photojournalists are a little bit crazy. They're the people who would do stuff like that where they see a car flying at them and they just pick up their camera, start taking pictures, figuring it's just going to barely miss them because those will be the best shots. So I like seeing that this very realistic take on this reporter, on this journalist who's going to go after this. It was very, I want to say a breath of fresh air, but we're still getting the aggressive Lois Lane in the pre-New 52. So it's not like this isn't something we weren't getting, but again, it's the same, but it's a little bit different. It's a little bit coming from a different approach, and I'm enjoying that.
And I do want to see them wind up together again. I'm with you on that. It's I want to follow that journey to that conclusion. And when I say conclusion, then, because I'm not a big believer in this whole that writing married characters limits them. I think that creative writers can do interesting things with married couples and tell stories that you can't tell with an unmarried couple. Like Animal Man #1, this is a married couple. And I challenge anyone to say that that's not an interesting book. That book was exciting as Animal Man #1. If you did not pick up, anybody listening, pick it up. We're going to talk about it on the show and tell you why on an upcoming, probably next week. We got to talk about that book. But that's just another one that I'm giddy over. So I'm going to tell everyone right now, highest possible because you didn't read that one yet, right?
I have not read it yet, so
read that next. Highest possible recommendation. Anybody out there? That book? You're reading Stormwatch. They'll finish Stormwatch first, then read that next because Stormwatch is great. Here's the funny thing. Recommendation-wise, there's a lot to recommend. Like I would recommend to you right now, knowing that you read Batgirl and all that right now, you got to read Animal Man #1. You got to read Swamp Thing. Terrific. Men of War was great. Got to read Green Arrow. That creative team, home run with Green Arrow. What am I missing? Stormwatch. You're reading that right now. There's just a lot to love. And I've got 2 more books. I was very, very satisfied this week. There's nothing that I'm glad I paid full boat for everything.
Yeah, Sean, I'm a little confused here. You're being a little bit vague. Did you enjoy the reading experience? I'm not completely following you.
No, yeah, no. I mean, I'm thrilled with. Well, but see, you know what the funny thing was? I figured there was going to be 1 or 2 books that got me feeling this way. I was excited through everything. I really was. I mean, there were certain books that stepped up higher than that. Like Animal Man was one that came out of nowhere. I'm like, whoa. Stormwatch was one I didn't know what to expect. Only because last Stormwatch I read was with you, Stormwatch PhD. Then I read some of that afterwards when Stormwatch was continuing on with Wildstorm. Then I got behind on it. I have a lot of Stormwatch to get caught up with that. But that was something I really dug. And this Action Comics was one. Batgirl, I knew was going to be a home. We're going to talk about that next week. I'll be drooling over the microphone on that book because that was terrific. But this whole idea with Superman, I like the fact that you got this guy, he doesn't know what he can take. There's something heroic about seeing him gently does it when he's getting in front of this train. He's doing the right thing just because he's a good guy, but he doesn't know that he can do this. Do you know what I mean? He's just determined. He's determined to do it, but he doesn't know that he can do it.
Yeah, this is kind of a hero experimentation. And again, that's another interesting thing to see where we have a Superman not know exactly what he can do, but he still has to do the right thing. And those are some cool moments when he's talking to Jimmy on the phone, realizing that they're getting on the train, even saying, "Don't do it, don't do it." He's like, "Uh-oh." That kind of dun 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 moment where Superman needs to rush to the scene, and swoop in and save the day. I thought that was another cool, just like, yeah, Superman moment, and seeing him go. I was, again, it just, the leap tall buildings more powerful than a locomotive. It was just like, oh.
Multiple pages devoted to what that train situation looked like, where he was stopping it. Because from Gently Does It, there was 4 pages, I think, devoted to that?
Yeah.
Not including the last, 2 pages that were devoted to the After Effects. But seeing that step by step, seeing what it looked like inside, outside, the train from various perspective points. And just the, really, it wasn't, bam, it stopped instantly. There was a whole process to this whole thing, and a risk level to Superman. I mean, that was, something that was interesting because this is a Superman who isn't the one we're going to see in the Superman #1. He's not there yet. The power levels you're talking about. I really loved seeing that from that perspective. It was really cool. And then this idea that Lex did all this, and I totally believe that Lex planned this, to put Superman in this position where he could be captured.
Yeah, it was the whole plan from day one to get him, get them to get a control, get, hands on Superman, take over and figure out what, basically he wants to cut him apart, figure out what makes him work, what makes him tick, dissect him, probably he's even thinking reproduction, and he's thinking just, 2 steps beyond where we think he's at.
Do the ends justify the means? And here's another question with what you're talking about. How does this tie into Superboy? Does it tie into Superboy?
I'm betting it does. I'm betting this is how we get some of the Superman DNA for Superboy, which if I'm thinking we're going to have Connor be a combination of Clark and Lex. Because Lex is, kind of doing all this stuff. I can see Lex, furthering his obsession with Superman, going, okay, let's make a clone. Let's see where we can go with this. Kind of a weapon. Figuring he'll create the clone to be a combative element against Superman.
I want to see him learn to fly the first time. I'm like, this has me excited for that. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
Seeing him, this determination and this moment where, he's kind of knocked out, he's knocked out at the end. Just seeing that moment, and I loved Lane's surprise. I love that Lane feels like he's made a deal with the devil, with Lex, and he's not comfortable with it. I loved his own morals showing through there. I like when we see Lane that, he's not necessarily your traditional, a bad guy kind of thing. I'm really curious to see what his relationship with Lois is like in this whole book.
Yeah, I'm guessing it's better than what we had in the War of New Krypton. I'm thinking they're going to have a little bit, nicer relationship between the two of them, but it's still going to be a strained relationship because they've always had that. It's, it is difficult being, the, military child, especially if your dad is, General Lane, with all the crazy stuff he's involved with, and add to the fact that Lois is a big supporter already of Superman. That's got to kind of rub, the general a little bit.
In 1 week, Superboy #1 reprogrammed to kill. So, it's going to be our Superboy, I'm guessing. But what does that look like? And how does that, because it's the same writer, Scott Lobdell, I believe, of Teen Titans. So, and didn't he mention at the panel in San Diego that Superboy is the villain of Teen Titans for the first year, I think?
I think for the first story arc, but it could be for the first year. I'm not sure.
Well, I wonder if it's he doesn't necessarily. I don't know. I'm curious to see what that looks like. I might be wrong on the. That's why I'm very tentative with that. So please, anybody listening, understand that I'm trying to remember what I heard at the panel, but I remembered him being labeled as that. Supergirl alone and hunted. I wonder where is she being hunted at? Is she on Earth? Is she? I think she's going to be somewhere else, if I remember correctly. We see Superman for the first time with the fate of the Daily Planet, and then Superman in Chains, where we flash back to the past. So 3 weeks we'll see Superman present day, which I'm insanely anxious. It's funny how this got me excited for that, because I want to see what that looks like. What is he like now? What are his power levels? What, are those questions like? We're going to see him in that armored suit. What's his relationships like? Because we know that Lois has a boyfriend. So, how long has he been at the Daily Planet with this? Because what is it? Is it a 5-year jump then?
Yes.
So what has happened with him in those 5 years? Where is he at? Obviously, I know he died because I won't say where. That was addressed in another book.
Oh, okay.
So Doomsday happened.
Oh, cool.
We already have seen that in one of the other books, and I'll just leave it at that. But that's not a shock. I'm not telling anybody anything new. That was something they've told us from DC that the major storylines did happen. They're just going to look a little different, obviously, because of the changes in relationships and things like that along the way. But, that was, what a very satisfying read. Was there anything else about I know we kind of jumped into this when talking about your comic shop experience, Jim. Is there anything we left out of that? What was the book? There was a book you had trouble finding. Wasn't there one where you had to go, like you went to the 2 shops and you got almost everything? What was the book you had trouble finding?
The last one was Detective Comics.
And how many shops do you have to go to get that?
That was the third one. I had to go to. When I went to the third one, I only had one left.
Okay.
That was the only title I had left to get, and it was funny because when I showed up at the shop, I'm like, and I ran there, and it was like, I think maybe I was taking the last one, or there was one left. So I was like, yes, so I got it, and they're just like, and the guy's like, you can kind of see him going, that's it, sort of disappointment, going, dang, I was hoping this guy would buy more, but I'm like, dude, I already bought everything else.
But that hunt is fantastic. I love that you had to do that. And it was funny when I was talking to you on the phone. It's funny how this digital experience, because you and I are really doing this differently. I'm doing it digitally, and you're cutting the show. And I was living vicariously through you, enjoying the hunt that you were going through, because I've done that so many times. And I'm to say you have too. But I mean, this is something, this type of event on this level. I'm thrilled to death that you had this experience twice, 2 weeks in a row.
I'm already laying out my groundwork for next week. Because I work on the west side of Cleveland, but I live on the east side. And all these shops I've gone to have been east side shops. So I'm thinking what I'm going to do is my lunch hour, I'm going to go hit the shops right at noon when these shops open.
On the west side?
On the west side, yeah. I'm going to hit the west side shops, from work, and that way, afterwards I'll know exactly what else I need to get. So I'll have a plan laid out, that way, and then, depending on, what we got going on, maybe I'll call ahead to some of the shops, or I'm going to handle next week a little bit differently. I'm going to try to make it a little bit easier on myself.
Dude, I was the same way with the app. Because this was like, the way it worked out, and it may have been just where I was getting the app, because I was doing it through the DCB service part, like, a couple books showed up, like Action Comics showed up and another one. So that's why this popped up, and there was one other book from the New 52 that popped up after they released the other ones during my lunch break. So I'm like, oh, cool. I really wanted to read Action Comics. So, I grabbed that one right away. Batgirl wasn't yet on there when I downloaded this, because that was my other one that was like, because I'm a Simona-holic. So it was, this popped up there. I'm like, okay, this is one of the big two, those were my 2 books that I really wanted to read first. I was very into that. And, so I read this one, but it was that anticipation you're talking about when you were jumping from shop to shop. I felt the same way. I didn't even hesitate. I'm like, okay, full boat, go, done. Wow. It was cool. Doing it this way, it was really, it was neat. But the way this works when you're doing it digitally, and I know I was talking about this partway through that, when you have your account, you can open it up on any computer and access your library on any computer through the internet, right through an internet browser. In the apps, I have a regular iPad at home, and then through work I have one that I use for grades. I use it for presentations for my kids. It really only has work stuff on it, except for I do have the DC app because it doesn't take up any storage space. So I'm not like taking away any of my, iPad space on there. So, I use that. It's funny how I've gone to, like, all of my lesson plans are on a synced up calendar that I use through MobileMe, which is Apple's platform. And I did that before the iPad too. So, all of my lesson plans are on there. grades. I can access my grade book for my kids, all the, important things like that. I can do presentations with my kids. I have a whiteboard software on there where, if I'm with a small group, I can use it like a smartboard. I have a smartboard in my classroom, a large size smartboard to use with my kids. But this is great for small groups because I can keep the full size smartboard working with most of my class and work at my table with, I love the digital stuff with my kids. My kids get excited from it. They're used to DSs and stuff like that, so touch screens, to be able to do some of these things on touch screens academically for them, it's a cool little tool to pull them in. So, I pulled this up on the iPad too. It was great, to see that. It was kind of a neat little opportunity. But your same account, you can pull up on any mobile device that you have, and it's your same account. So when you log into the Comixology app, it asks you for your username and password. It's your Comixology one. So that opens it up anywhere. So again, it's like the web. You're able to access it that way. So it's any desktop I have access to, any laptop I have access to. If I go over to a friend's house to read my books, I can pop them up there. That, to me, was the key to digital. If I can only get it one place, only have access to it at one point, then it's inconvenient. If I can access it on any device that I have, and it's my same account, these are my books, I can take them everywhere like I can paper comics. There's very little limitation to this for me. Other than, paper comics, obviously, you don't need a power source. You just pull them out and go. So there is that. There is that aspect of it, and that's something to consider. But for anybody that's concerned how that works, you're not just buying it for one device. You're buying it and you're accessing it anywhere that you can get to Comixology. You can get it there. If you buy it, like if the iPad, and you switch to some other tablet down the road, as long as it's an Android or Apple platform, and I'm sure if any other major platform comes along, there will be a DC app for that. You're logging into your Comixology account. You're not buying it per app. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's your book, as long as you're logging into your account from any platform. And that, to me, is important because it's got to be digital. Should be the same type of freedom of ownership that you would have any other way. But then, you have the advantage of not pirated. It's not going to be pirated because you're doing it through the web. You do download them through the app to your portable devices, where I'll click on it and it's downloaded to that device and I can read it on there. But I don't have like a physical copy, which might be a limitation for some people. If you like the paper copy, and I mean, this isn't a replacement for paper. It's different. It's a different avenue of exploration. For people that are collectors and like having the paper copies and like having them graded and signed and doing all that, this isn't going to replace any of that. That's why this is, is different from the regular paper copies as trades are to floppies. It's new. It's different. But there is more freedom than it just being on one device. And just for anybody, because it was brought up on our Facebook account. Somebody was asking the question, how does it work with the digital? So I wanted to throw that on the show for anybody who's curious how that works. And I like the fact that I can go to a storefront from, and support DCB Service, who's been supporting our show. Lots of comic shops are doing the same thing, too. So I encourage you, obviously, to support our show sponsor because, if you like our podcast, it's a way of supporting us by supporting them. Whether you're doing it through paper or digital, consider supporting DCB Service and InStockTrades.com. But you can also support your local comic shops. I bought stuff from Jim over at Comic Heaven on the app. So you can do both, and it's a real cool way, digitally to be able to support your comic shops, too. And that's important to me. So, I don't know, it's kind of a cool thing, and I just thought I'd shout it out. But though I didn't expect us to start talking about Action Comics, but you and I started talking about that experience of reading it, and I'm like, I want to talk about one of these new 52 books. I'm very excited for this. I want to talk about them. I want to talk about all of them. So, this talking about Action first wasn't a knock on any of the other books. It just kind of organically, it was the first one you and I both read because of both of our experiences. And I thought, we got to talk about this.
Can Batman escape? One hint, the worst is yet to come.
Hey, Sean and Jim. It's Jim Dietz from the Legion of Juice podcast and Gypsy Cafe. How's it going? I just wanted to extend the invitation to you guys if you ever want to come out and do another podcast brunch. I'd be happy to have you. I wanted to talk to you about episode 270 and 271. First of all, 270 with the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. I really enjoyed your coverage of that. we covered on the LOD a couple of years ago, but it was really cool to go back to it once again with you guys, with your fresh take and your insights and everything. And it's one of my favorite comics. It gave me a great excuse to read it again. So thank you. Episode 271 of the new DCNU, covering Flashpoint 5 and Justice League 1. I just wanted to say I really enjoyed the Flashpoint event. I really liked the alternate timeline that spun out, and the really cool way that some of the characters that we know and love in a familiar way came out very familiarly. I have to say, though, I was slightly let down by Justice League 1. I guess I expected more than just another story of getting the band back together, I mean, we've seen this story before with Justice League and the Brad Meltzer run most recently, but I mean also with the Justice League and Justice League Unlimited cartoon, the whole story, quote unquote, getting the band together, all the all the heroes getting together and meeting for the first time. It's a cool take and it's a cool idea. I've seen this story before, and I'm just kind of disappointed in the way the first issue spun out. I'm willing to give it a chance, obviously. And there are a lot of the DCNU ancillary titles I'm very interested in. I'm very interested in Frankenstein, Agent of Shade by Jeff Lemire. I'm very interested in Justice League Dark by Peter Milligan. That looks like it could be a very cool comic. So I am excited about a lot of the DCNU comics that are coming up. I just was kind of, I felt a little let down by Justice League 1. You only get Superman for the last page, and and before that, all you get is Batman and Green Lantern. And I'm not sure. This Hal doesn't. I know Hal is supposed to be Mr. Confidence and Mr. Cocky or whatever, but this Hal just didn't ring true as what I'm used to from Jeff Johns as far as his portrayal of Hal as Green Lantern. But I'm willing to stick with it and give it a chance. Justice League is pretty much one of my favorite comics since I was a little kid. It was like the one comic I followed through good times and bad times. The good times of Morrison and Perez, and going even back to Dick Dillon and the Satellite League, and of course the James DeMatteis and Keith Giffen run. And even to the bad times like the Detroit League and Justice League Europe. I've always been there. I've always been a fan. So I'm definitely going to follow the title. I was just a little. I guess I wanted a little more in the story than what they brought to the table, and that was my only complaint. Like I said, I didn't hate it. I'm not trolling on it at all. I guess I was expecting a little more. But thank you so much for your in-depth coverage of it. I really appreciate it a lot. It keeps it's really your coverage has really opened my eyes to some of the ancillary Flashpoint stories I probably would not have checked out otherwise. And keep doing what you do, guys. You're the best at what you do. This is Jim, and have fun.
I really like Legion of Dooms. I like Jim a lot.
Yes.
It's funny. We have a disagreement as far as Justice League, and I actually really, please, anytime call in with this, because it's part of the show. I want it to be interactive like this, and it's fun to do this. See, the Hal thing, for me, the one thing I keep remembering, this is Hal very early in his career. So when you talk about the way that Jeff Johns writes Hal, we're used to Jeff Johns writing Hal from Rebirth on. We saw in Secret Origin, Hal when he was younger, but not an exploration of him interacting with like Batman and what it looked like back in the day. So I actually liked that he felt different. Now, I would have a major issue if Justice League flashes to present day, where this is the Hal Jordan that we're seeing that's gone through Blackest Night and Brightest Day, and the Sinestro Corps War and all that stuff.
And everything, and he's still this way.
And he's behaving this way. I totally 110% agree with Jim there. I don't want to see that from him in present day. That just doesn't work for me. But it did in Justice League because none of that happened. He hasn't done any of that yet. So it's... that I'm okay with that. I like seeing that. Now, I don't want that to always be their dynamic, and it's not going to be, because this is an origin story of the team bringing them together. And it felt for me, the Meltzer run, it didn't feel like that for me. But I get what he's saying, it's another formation of the team together, so I'm not, he made that connection. I didn't. That doesn't mean he's wrong for making that connection. I want to clarify that. He's making that connection because you're right. He was right. It was bringing the band together. His Justice League Unlimited comparison is that 100% I agree with, because that was the formation of the team. And that's what this is. We're seeing the formation of the team. I actually liked the focus on the relationship of a couple of the members and the building of the team. Like, as opposed to bam dropping in, they're all together in one issue, and it's kind of chaotic as far as I'm trying to follow in this panel what it's like with Wonder Woman's relationship with Aquaman, and then over here, what's Batman's relationship like with Hal Gordon versus
Jim
Ming
Gordon's new
versus Sinestro the Merciless or something. I'm all pulpy, but I liked that kind of focus. I do want to see, now it's time to shift the focus. How do these guys start building a relationship with Superman? I want to see spotlighting of all the characters of the team. We got a spotlight on Cyborg in this. It's a fleshing out of who these characters are individually, who they are to each other at this time frame. So I want to see an equal amount of screen time to all the characters. So when you're saying, I only saw Superman in the last page, I'm with him. I want to see more Superman. I get what he's saying there, but I'm not looking at that as a problem. I'm looking at that as anticipation. I want to see that next issue. I want to see that more. And I want to see all the team, which is what he's saying. And it's not, he doesn't have to agree with me on this. We can feel differently about it. But that was, I think, what worked on the issue for me is it built anticipation. I want to see more people. And it gave me a very satisfying intro look at what is Hal like, what is Bruce like operating this time. Bruce felt like he was a lot more experienced than Hal, to me.
Amen. I agree completely. And you know what else we can completely agree on? Mm-hmm. Anytime you're in Pittsburgh, PA, stop by the Gypsy Cafe for some great chow. Absolutely amazing. Gotta always give him a shout out because the man knows how to cook. I know how to eat. I know food. He's an awesome chef. Wonderful food. Check it out anytime you're in Pittsburgh.
I actually meant to talk about this too because I didn't mean to gloss over what he was suggesting at the beginning of it. We did the Gypsy Cafe Geekend a few years ago. And, it was one of those things that we've talked about doing ever since. And, we'll talk about doing it and then scheduling wise, not because of Jim. It's on our end. Trying to put that together is difficult. And we've gone to big conventions and stuff like that. Let's make it a point this year to make that happen. Over the next year. So sometime in the next 12 months, let's make that happen again. All right? We'll do something like that. Because I really had a lot of fun doing that. Jim is a wonderful host. There's a lot to do out there. You and I always talked about the fact that now we've done it once. We would be able to set up hey, this is what the weekend looks like. This is where you should stay because there was a Dave & Buster's. There was all kinds of cool things to do. So I think, we could spend over this year kind of coordinating that and do something like that again. And it was a fun event, and I really had a good time doing it. It was kind of cool to record at his place. The food's fantastic, and there was a lot to do around the area. So I would recommend, and I'm not saying don't wait till then for anybody to go to Gypsy. Go to Gypsy whenever you get the chance because it's tremendously cool. But I would like to do that again. That was a tremendous amount of fun, and just it's timing-wise. You and I haven't been able to work that out. Jim's been always gracious in offering. I want to do it, so we'll make it a point.
Yes.
That'll be our goal. But thank you, Jim. And listen to Legion of Dudes. Great podcast.
G'day, Sean. G'day, Jim. This is Brett calling from Australia. Well, Flashpoint's finished. It's all over and done with, and I thought that I would give you my quick thoughts on the massive saga that we've been treated to over the last few months. Absolutely mind-blowing. Loved every second of it. Really liked the way that Barry was able to save John F. Kennedy from assassination, even though it meant that he was paralysed and couldn't run anymore, although, of course, he had his mind still running at 1 million miles an hour, as, of course, Barry's mind must do. Having Wally find an ancient artifact that gave him the power of the Flash was a great spin on an old story that we loved so very much. Me in particular, Wally is my Flash, and I'm quite sad to see that he's missing from the new DCU. But that's a rant for another day, I'm sure. Flashpoint Vandal Savage being the main baddie, of course, who could trust Vandal, although it was interesting that him and Barry worked together for 30 years trying to find a cure for Barry's paralysis. A great story. I love the way it ended up with Barry joining an alternate DC universe, which of course was our DC universe. Great artwork and just a fantastic story. Now I'm sure you're thinking, what's Brad talking about? This isn't Flashpoint. What? I'm talking about the Flashpoint from November 99 to January 2000. That was written by Pat McGrail and drawn by probably my favourite artist, Norm Brayfogle. fantastic piece of work. It's been forgotten for a long, long time, but for mine, it was the best Flashpoint. It was certainly my favourite Flashpoint. I enjoyed what Johns and Hubert did with Barry in this new Flashpoint universe and the battle between the Amazonians and the Atlanteans, but I've got to say, there's just something about that artwork and that simple storyline featuring my favourite Flash Wally and his favourite uncle Barry that really struck home. I very much enjoyed it. Great appearances as well that we get from Martian Manhunter and the Elongated Man, and it's just a really fun series. I recommend that anybody who hasn't read the original, as I like to call it, Flashpoint, give it a go. It's a lot of fun. It's a great Elseworld story, and fans of Barry and Wally, that's certainly one you can't afford to miss. Once again, Jim, Sean, thank you very much indeed for the show. It's something that I love looking forward to every day. And Sean, you gave us a call to arms a few episodes back. I will be voicemailing in again very soon to let you know what books I'm looking forward to in the DCNU. Okay, boys, I hope you're having a great day, and I'll hassle you again soon. See you later.
What a great call, because he got me. I was like, what in the world is he talking about? And then when we started going through, I'm like, oh, wait a minute. He's like talking about a different storyline. How cool is that? Something from 1990, obviously from The Flash. I love that he referenced Norm Brayfogle, because I love Norm Brayfogle's art. I butcher his name all the time, particularly from Batman for me. You know, that's an artist who I really enjoyed his take on Batman. So it's kind of cool to, you know, just hear that kind of. And please feel free, listeners, don't be afraid to call in and shout out favorite storylines from your past, things like that. Anything, DC and comic related that you want to get on the show. I love stuff like this. It's did he throw you for a loop?
Not only did he completely get me, I'm quickly looking through this past week's comics, the New 52, thinking, oh my God, is there a title what did I miss? I'm trying to figure out which one I missed, because I'm like, I have no idea what he's talking about. What? And it completely had me. I'm thinking, is he telling me, is this something that's, I haven't read yet because I haven't read all the issues from this week? I'm like, is this something that happens in there? I'm like, wait, there's no Flash issue this week. What's going on? Or what's he talking about? Completely hook, line, and sinker had me. Absolutely wonderful. You get a whoosh for that one, my friend.
Well, in your defense, you hadn't read the story. He got me, and I'd read the story because as he's going through step by step with it. I think I was so focused on the fact because he referenced Flashpoint, and I'm thinking of the current one. I was so focused on that I'm like, when would that happen in Flashpoint? What is he talking about? Then as he started going on, I'm like, oh my gosh, he's going there. And I mean, it took me a while, though. I mean, I'm a dunce. Admittedly, he caught me with that. But that was great. And I like, don't be afraid to call in stories and things like that and share them on the show, because this really is about a passion for comics. And recommendations for people with classic storylines is always welcome on our show, because people are always looking for, hey, when I'm going to a convention, when I'm going to a comic shop, things like that, what kind of things should I be looking for from the past as well? With digital comics nowadays, popping up on all these devices, what classic storylines should be on the lookout for if I can get those issues. Those are always welcome shout-outs. So very, very cool. He got me.
Outstanding.
Hey, Sean and Jim. This is Rob Schaefer calling. I don't post on the boards much, but I met you guys a couple times at the New York Comic Con. I really enjoyed the Flashpoint event. I thought it was really, really well written and very exciting, and it gave me a feeling of like a really big Elseworlds tale. I'd like to have the scene of when Barry is waking up at the desk in Flashpoint 5 mirrors him waking up at the beginning of Flashpoint 1, like he was like dreaming it or something. But I did have a little confusion that maybe you could help me. You could like maybe clear up for me. I know I'm not supposed to focus on this because we're having with the new universe. But I'm having a little problem believing that Barry's mother was always like predestined to die, being killed by Reverse Flash. I mean, I don't understand. I don't understand how, keeping her alive prevents Clark's spaceship to land in Smallville or allows Bruce to be killed instead of his parents, among other things. I just reread Flashpoint 1 through 5 and the Reverse Flash issue of Flash and the Road to Flashpoint. I've been trying to figure it out. I just don't understand how it's all Barry's fault. In the Reverse Flash Rebirth issue of the Jeff Johns run, Thawne experiments with time. He's changing things in his own life to his advantage, and then runs off to destroy Barry's. At that point, he ran into the past, killed Barry's mom, and then came forward in time to terrorize Barry, telling him what he did. And that caused Barry to go back into the past, and that's how Flashpoint supposedly happened. I mean, I don't understand how Barry fixing a time anomaly created an alternate universe so different. I think it's more likely that Thrawn changed things and then wanted to drive Barry even more crazy, but he didn't figure that Thomas Wayne was going to be there and doing what he did. Anyway, if you guys could think about that and just maybe you see a different thing than I do on it. I just was really confused by that one, how it all started. But I thought it was a really great story, and I look forward to seeing how things pan out with the new DCU. Just picked up just the Justice League issue, and that was awesome too. So cool. All right, guys. Thanks for now, and I'll see you in New York. Take care.
Jim, as he was doing his commentary there, you said you had a theory. So why don't you go ahead first, and then I'll share mine, because I have one as well.
Okay. My theory on how all of this occurred is when Barry goes back into the past, he doesn't just stop, Thawne. He actually does something that you shouldn't be able to do. He pulls into the full Speed Force, and it's that abusing the power and doing what he shouldn't have done with it that's what causes the universal kind of ripple effect that it messes everything else up. It's and it's an abuse of power. It's that when you take something that's supposed to have its one direction and its one positive force, and Barry turned that direction. Barry changed that, and I think that, to me, that was the explanation.
Well, and actually, I'm going to build off of what you're saying. First of all, his mom wasn't predestined to die. That wasn't what the issue was. The problem was Thawne did it. Barry went back in time to correct it. Because of the way Thawne pushed at him and plugged at him, like you said, he pulled in the full power of the Speed Force, was tugging from every avenue on it. And you see that in Flashpoint. They explain that. And actually, it also happens in The Flash, where you see just how much Barry put into that. So what's happening is very much a ripple effect. It's like using a sawed-off shotgun. It's not just what you hit in front of you, it's what else gets hit along the way. He was actually tearing at time along the way as he was running back, and if you see that, it's ripple effects. So it was, and obviously a lot of those ripples went to people close to him, and that was the explanation. These are things, along, it's like running your fingers with sharp nails along a wall. You're not really intending on doing any damage to that wall, but it's going to happen. That's what happened there. And that's the explanation on it. The reason why Barry had to stop, why his mom had to die, was Barry had to stop himself from doing that. So it's not his mom that was the focal point. It's he has to stop himself before he causes this. Because that was the reason why the end result of Flashpoint was Barry had to go stop him. So that didn't happen. So it wasn't, it's not an issue of saving mom. It's that can't happen because of that. Now, could Barry go back and try to rescue Mom? I don't know that he would after what happened. He had to make that decision to say, this is just something I can't do. I need to put my rules back on myself because breaking those rules, look what I did. So it was really a decision at this point to say, am I going to risk doing this again? And what happens then? So it's taking a responsibility, realizing what he did to that world and all that. But it really was an issue of, it wasn't that Barry saving his mom did this. That had nothing to do with it. It was the journey, pulling in the Speed Force all that way. It caused ripples throughout time when he did that. Tears. I guess tears is the best way to look at it. I think the sawed-off shotgun analogy is probably one of the best ones. He fired, and there was shrapnel. and it's shrapnel of Speed Force along the way that is different than how Barry normally operates. Because when you were talking about him pulling in that Speed Force, that is the pivotal moment. He was pulling in power and utilizing it in a way that he never has before. I don't think it was a karma thing, as far as him using it in a bad way. I think it was... he was overpowered, overcharged with Speed Force, using it, to really try to outrun him. Because you see that the intensity of trying to beat Thawne, trying to stop him from doing, because Thawne had teased him with, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to kill her. I'm going to do that. So he is trying to race against him, to beat, not only to catch up with him, but to stop him, to overtake him. Along the way, the amount of power that he pulled in along the way was just ripping at time. And that's what did it. It was the power that did it. It's like a leak. That was really what was happening. He was leaking along the way. He's like a saggy diaper. A big, flashy, saggy diaper of Speed Force.
Okay. Got no way to follow that one.
What the sad part is, you kind of agree, don't you?
Yeah.
We should actually talk about the New York Comic Con, because we've met Rob multiple times. I really enjoy talking to him. You're going to New York Comic Con this year.
Yes.
But we're not going to have a table.
No, I will be a civilian this year. Actually, a con goer like everybody else, and not have a table, and I'm kind of looking forward to it. It's been so long since, we've got to, I've gotten to just, do that I'm now trying to figure out, what do I do again? Because I'm not going to have the table to leave my stuff. Where am I going to go? I got to figure out the game plan and all of that. So it's going to be an interesting experience. And this will be my first con without you there. So this is another kind of excitement adventure for me.
Yeah, because my first convention, my first major convention, when I went to Wizard World Chicago all those years ago, I went alone. So you're going this time. I know you're meeting your brother, I think, along the way.
Yeah.
How will listeners contact you if they want to hook up with you and meet you there?
I don't know.
Do you want them to contact you via email?
Normally I tell them to tell you.
No, but I'm saying, do you want them to contact you at your email address, senseiofwhatnot at gmail.com?
Yeah, it's senseiofwhatnot at gmail.com. Let me know if you're going to be there. We'll see if we can figure out something. I know I'll be, swinging by Mecca, swinging by the DC booth, as well as I'll probably be heading over to where the podcast arena is to say hey to people. But, yeah, so it's...
But I know when I've done this before where we didn't have a table, I've met up with friends of the show. We plan to meet at this such and such a panel or something like that. And that's kind of a great way if they want to coordinate with you ahead of time as far as, hey, let's meet up at some point, something to probably do before New York Comic Con, because New York Comic Con's huge. So I'd highly recommend that. I can't go this year. It's really one of those things. I had to make a very tough decision. My wife and I have done a lot of work around our house over the summer. And really, the podcast, we don't talk about a lot on the show, and this isn't a violin type of thing. It's just a reality. We've been doing this podcast for over 5 years now, and there's an expense to it. And, I've gone to multiple conventions ever since doing the podcast. We've done New York, we've done Chicago. We've done a couple of big cons every year we've been doing the show. Plus, I was doing conventions before we did the podcast, where I was going to Wizard World Chicago and stuff like that, and, kind of traveling around and hitting a lot of conventions. And there comes a point right now where, my wife has been very patient and kind and supportive, and she's not driving this at all. It was really me just saying, you know what, right now, financially, I need to... kind of not do New York this year. Because, there is, we have a sponsor, DCB Service, who's incredibly generous as far as helping offset the costs of podcasting, but it doesn't cover any people. There's not money in podcasting. Yeah. Unless you're one of the big shows that kind of covers everything and stuff like that, there's not a lot of money in podcasting. We do this as a labor of love. So really an issue I just had to say, I really can't do New York this year. So I had that discussion with you, but I wanted to make sure we let our listeners know so that way they know to hook up with you at the convention, because I'm sure there's a lot of people that would like to meet you, hang out with you at the convention and stuff like that, and know how to do that. So we'll shout it out on the show a few times so people know how to get a hold of you at senseiofwhatnot at gmail.com for it. And I'm going to miss seeing people at the convention this year, people like Rob, who, a lot of our friends who I've seen every year in New York. And I will be back. My goal is to go back next year. But it's just this year, we did a lot of stuff around the house that just needed to be done, and it was really kind of the choice. It's one of the differences between you and me. One of us has a mortgage. There's times I'm very envious of you over that. But that's New York Comic Con.
Hey, Sean and Jim. This is Zach out here in Denver, Colorado. I'm the owner of a comic book store called More Comics. I sent you guys a package around Blackest Night that had all the rings in it. I just wanted to give you guys a quick call to let you know tell you about the day. It's September 7th. It was the first day of the new DC 52, and I got to tell you guys, it was such an amazing day that I wanted to share it with you guys. Just in the first hour today, we were sold out of like 6 titles right off the bat of DC stuff, and it was all day long. I was just dealing with really excited people about DC. It was really cool. I mean, it's working, and I'm loving what I'm seeing. We ordered more copies of stuff that we thought were going to be popular, but it just went crazy. We sold out of stuff. Plus, we found out that we were going to get reorders of stuff coming in next week. So, we would get 20 extra copies of Green Arrow. We'd get, 20 extra copies next week of Detective, things like that. And we were even selling out of those. We were selling future books that we hadn't even gotten yet. So, it's been crazy. We signed up so many hold slots. That's our, the hold memberships at our shop. And it's just been going crazy. My 2 other partners and we were sitting around tonight at dinner talking about how we have not seen something like this. They haven't seen something like this since the death of Superman. This much fervor, this much excitement. There's been some great stories. I could go on for a long time. I had a woman come in today, said that she was into Smallville, she was into things like that, and she always wanted to read Green Arrow, but she was afraid to because of, numbering, or she didn't know where to start. She picked Green Arrow #1, happy as can be. I had little kids come in asking, Dad, can I please get the Action Comics? Can I get that? Whatever, whichever one they were excited about. And so it's just been awesome. As a comic fan and as a DC fan, it's been warming my heart because so many people are excited about these books. They're getting into it, and we're selling out. One of my partners is staying up tonight trying to get comics for more people because it's just going crazy. We're just selling like gangbusters. So, it's been a great experience. Fathers, sons coming in. We got girlfriends and boyfriends hand in hand coming into the comic shop because they want to try this new Swamp Thing or they want to try this Action Comics, we're selling out of variants. I even sold, we get in damaged copies of comics. And, people are like, oh, man, I really just want to read Swamp Thing. Or it was actually, in this instance, it was a Swamp Thing. They said, I need to read this. And I said, hey, this one's damaged, and I don't want to sell you, a messed up copy. I can get you one next week. And they said, no, man, I just want to read it. I don't care if it's going to be worth anything. I just want to read it. And I said, are you sure? And he said, absolutely. And he was happy as can be buying the copy that, it was pretty crunched. It looked like somebody had used it as an accordion. But he could still read it, and that was what he was about. So, it's just been like that all day. It's been crazy, and the entire day it was busy. There wasn't really a lull ever. So I thought you guys would get a kick out of hearing it from a retailer's perspective. On a personal level, I think it's really great. I think some of the stuff they're doing is really cool. But from a retailing standpoint, it's been working. It's been great, and the excitement is been one of the coolest things that I've seen in the 4+ years I've been doing comic book retailing. It's probably the coolest thing, actually. So just wanted to leave you guys with that. Love the show, and hope everything's going well, and you guys enjoy your books. All right, talk to you later. Bye-bye.
That's iwantmorecomics.com. If you're in the Denver, Colorado area, make sure to be checking out his shop. And I was like glued to his call.
Yeah.
That energy was like infectious.
That was neat, and it's cool to hear that it's not just because in Ohio, right here we're seeing that it was selling out. I'm glad this is across the board. It's not just us; it's all over the place. So that was cool to hear. Thanks, man.
This stuff makes me feel like a kid again, because this is what comics have always been to me. This is my approach when I go to read comics, and when you get times like this, I get his vibe. What he's saying, where he's talking about, I haven't seen this since Death of Superman. When you get this vibe of like you were joking about it before, John. I don't know what were you enjoying reading your books this week? But see, that's when you've got that kind of energy going into reading them, and then the payoff is when you're reading the books, you're getting then the payoff of them being that spectacular along with the build to it. That's an energy that you only get from the creativity of comics. When really great creative teams are putting together some really interesting material and, it feels fresh and exciting. And then there's a community vibe of all of us kind of talking about this and, this build to it. The payoff, it's really important, that build to a payoff. And I love that we're seeing in a junky economy on the retail end as well, that there's new faces too. This woman who's afraid to buy it. That's what I want to see out of this. I want to see some new people, who maybe either never tried a comic before or, the lapsed readers. I know that's been brought up lots of times as well. But new people as well. That's something that, on the retail end, looking around, browsing, seeing, that first book, that woman who read that Green Arrow book that he was talking about in there, if she likes that might lead her to try something else. Or maybe she'll always just be a Green Arrow reader. How cool is that, though? I mean, Green Arrow was terrific. And, that would be fantastic if now she all of a sudden just follows forever Green Arrow and just that this was her avenue. Maybe she'll try some of the older material that she never read, that she was kind of standoffish on and kind of like saying, hey, maybe now this will be my avenue into that. I don't know. I'm envious of someone like her reading that for the first time. And if, she gets that satisfying experience, this opens up a whole new creative avenue for her, and a whole new thing to explore. What books might she see on the shelf that maybe, she never realized were available in comics? What kind of genres, that comics have in them? Because I really love, Neil Gaiman mentioned once that he doesn't consider comics a genre. He considers it a medium with lots of genres in it. So what type of things did she think, this wouldn't be, I didn't think this would be published in a comic that she might pick up from the shelf and grab because of it. I don't know. It's cool stories, and I'm glad that. Thanks, Zach, for calling on that, because that's something. I'm not a retailer, so I don't get to see it from that side. But I'm thrilled, like you, Jim, to see that this is. We had a lot of listeners posting on Facebook and stuff too, and that things were selling out at places. Batgirl sold out at a couple of shops and things like that people were mentioning. Knowing that we're such fans of Gail's work. And, I'm just thrilled to hear that. I think this is great. I love the energy, and I'm hoping that new people, I hope that lady just was blown away. Wow, this is cool. And I love that Smallville was her launching it, because you don't hear that very often. That people actually got launched into from TV anymore, because there's always that feeling that comics don't, that TV and film don't lead to comic readers. And I'm glad that this was maybe a way to get people to jump on for the first time. I don't know. It's neat.
Hello, Sean and Jim. This is Sebastian from Gatineau, actually. So the new 52 is out. I'm loving it. I got myself a couple of books. I got myself the Action Comics #1, Detective Comics, Swamp Thing, Animal Man. Just got one question. There's that one guy popping out in crowds. He's hooded, he's red, and he's kind of misty looking. If you guys have an answer to what he might be, that'd be cool. So, to talk about it. So, have a nice day, and I hope to see you guys someday at a convention or whatever. Okay, bye.
It's funny. I took her, because based on Flashpoint 5, with what she was talking about, she is trying to guide our universe or protect our universe from the upcoming threat. Because she made it sound like the splinters that we saw, that, she helped merge, when Barry merged to this new universe that we have now. There was the 3 universes that were brought together. That was weakening our world, and that was being done deliberately by some outside force. Now, I didn't know if that outside force... So are you taking her to be benevolent? Or there might be a gray area to her?
I think she's, kind of, a little bit of a touch of gray.
Yeah.
I don't think she's good. I don't think she's evil. She's just there. She's just the universe. She's kind of, I don't know.
When you're saying touch of gray, I feel like we should give her some Just for Men product or something like that. Oh, we don't want to darken her up. We want to bleach. Let's bleach her. Then she'll be on the light.
See, I'm thinking Grateful Dead, touch of gray. So.
Oh, are you? All right.
And no, I'm not going to sing it, so don't worry.
Really? Was this the all new 52 Jim?
Yeah, the new Jim, the new 52
The
Jim.
DCNU Jim, a little less singing?
No, there'll be more singing.
Yeah, I don't think so. I'd be a little bit scared. Yeah, I don't know. So in her case, I don't know what her whole MO is. I don't. My question with her is not just her, but what is this threat she's talking about? Is it Darkseid, or is there more? I don't know. I don't know what that is because in the Justice League we see, the League coming together, with the threat of Darkseid on the horizon. But is there something else, or I don't know. I don't know if I'm reading too much into that. I don't care. And I mean that, in the sense that I don't need to know what the threat is right now. I want to see it. I'm like Sebastian. I actually really want to kind of follow this through, kind of see. I'm speculating on her and what her involvement is. And that is my theory right now is that, I think she was hinting at Darkseid. But I think that might be just because I read Flashpoint and that led into Justice League where Darkseid's the threat. So, there might be more. I don't know. I don't know what's going on yet. So I'm curious. I'm just as curious on that enigma as he is. I was just thinking about him, actually. Dude, I find that, with our listeners that we've encountered at conventions, with listeners we've met, through, phone chats, people we've had on the show, forums, Facebook, stuff like that. There's people, if I haven't heard from them in a while or haven't had an opportunity, I do, all of you who are listening, I genuinely think about you from time to time, when we've had these interactions. It's one of the things I really do like about the show is I start thinking about people that I've had conversations with, even if it's been ages ago that I've talked to you. So I literally was just thinking about him the other day. I'm like, I haven't heard from him in a while. So thank you for calling in on that. I love that this excitement's got kind of a global thing. We're hearing from people who are fans of the show.
We got multi-continental,
voicemails,
feedback on this. This is awesome.
Yeah. I'm glad to see that. I'm with you. I'm glad to see this vibes kind of all over about this. This is an excitement. A great sampling.
Hey, Sean and Jim. This is Jamie Dunn from JD74 on the boards. I wanted to talk a little bit about Batgirl #1. I thought it was an amazing issue. I thought it was really, really well done. Gail Simone did an amazing job on it. I'm loving how it looks like we're getting a Barbara Gordon who's just getting back into the game. You can see that from her first encounter with those mass criminals. And I loved how she's there. She's not entirely there yet by her being kind of nervous at the end and needing to go to the bathroom. I thought that was just really an interesting, setup for, the rest of the issue. I love the interaction with her and her father. Always love that. I like where it might be going with the new roommate, her being an activist and her being the daughter of the police commissioner of Gotham City. That could be some very interesting interactions. And I'm really liking this new villain. I hope he's someone who will stick around for a bit. Questions I had overall in the issue was, how she got cured. I mean, it says that she did. She was in a wheelchair for 3 years, and now she can walk again. I'm still curious as to how that happened. Although I didn't need it in the first issue. I was so, satisfied with what I got in the issue. I can wait, down the line. I'm more curious as to whether or not she was the Oracle. I mean, it didn't say that. Again, still first issue, so I don't really need all the answers in one issue. Overall, I thought the book was really well done. Loved the art, loved the tweaks in the costume, and I'm on board for this. I think it's going to be a great series, and I look forward to hearing other take on it, and hope it gets a good readership. All right, guys, talk to you later. Bye.
This is going to be a 2-episode chat about this because we're going to talk in depth about Batgirl next week for sure. I know that, but there's no way I'm not responding to this because I want to talk about this book so bad. It's first of all the Oracle thing. Let's talk about that. We don't know if she was Oracle or not, and does that bother you? Did you like? I was questioning too with him, but I guess I was kind of taking it that she probably wasn't. How did you take it?
Well, I was actually I took it that she probably was Oracle, but I'm not 100% certain on that, to be honest. And it's one of those things where, in Gale we trust. I know we will get the full story behind this. In the issue she just says, then a miracle happened. I can't believe it even now. We're going to find out what that miracle is. We're going to learn what happened, and we have complete faith in her. She's going to tell us the story, and as it lays out, it's going to be cool.
Well, she still is. Wait, and one point of clarification. Regardless of whether or not she was "quote unquote" Oracle, as far as a label, she still is Oracle.
Yeah, because she
Oracle
talks
is
about
Barbara.
Yeah, well, Barbara talks about how the chair did make her stronger, how it did make her, she didn't just hide from it. The Joker didn't beat her. Even though she couldn't move, it didn't hold her back. And she does talk about the power and the strength that she learned from everything and she had to dealt with. So that tells me she was Oracle.
Well, no. It could be that the strength to overcome what he did to her did that as well. Because we saw that she had a phobia that came from him. And I mean, she has to deal with some of that in this issue as well. So that doesn't necessarily, I didn't take that to be a guarantee that she was Oracle. I took that as being a possibility. So I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying I see what you're saying as a possibility. But I'm seeing the other possibility that she might not have been. I guess, because I had to think about this when I was reading it. How would I feel if she wasn't? And I had to recognize the fact that she is still. It's Barbara Gordon. Barbara Gordon was Oracle. We're not losing Barbara Gordon. So, there's an opportunity here to show the Oracle skill set in Batgirl, and kind of merge those two. We don't have to lose what made her Oracle, because I don't necessarily think the wheelchair made her Oracle. It was her skill set, her strength, and all that. So, I think you can have both. And we haven't taken away what she had to deal with being in the wheelchair and all that. So it's an interesting dynamic because I love Oracle. I love Oracle to death. So as a fan, I'm trying to resolve for myself, was she, wasn't she, and what really matters to me moving on. I could care. If I find out she was Oracle in those 3 years, and you're right on that end, I'm thrilled. If I find out she wasn't, I'm fine with that too, because it's really more so to me, do I have that vibe from her moving forward? Am I making sense there? I don't want Oracle to be isolated to just being a memory from Barbara's past. I want the things that I liked about her as Oracle to be things that organically I find in Batgirl moving forward with new stories with Batgirl. So I want the resolution too. I agree with Jamie. I agree with you in the sense that what you're saying is a possibility. I'm seeing that there's another possibility too, and I'm looking at what really matters to me in this, regardless of what that winds up being, because I want to know too, and I want to see, like Jamie said, how gradually over time, seeing what it was like for her to get out of the chair, how did that all happen, and what came about there. I want all those answers. So I agree with everything Jamie's saying, but it's also, I loved this issue because it focused so much on her as Batgirl and what that vibe is like. Let's answer those questions, and that's what Jamie's saying. Let's answer those questions in little bits and pieces along the way as it organically fits into the storyline. That's cool, and I think that's part of what having the mirror being someone that Barbara's facing in the beginning is all about. And, oh God, we're going to start talking about this issue, aren't we? Because I can't help it. I love this. I'm trying so hard to do this quickly, and it's just not happening. I'm going because I'm giddy about this book. Obviously, I love the mirror as a villain. I'm digging all this. We are going to have to continue this next week, but I'll try to wrap this up as much as I can. But for me, what's really drastically important here with Barbara Gordon is, moving forward, I want to feel like this is Barbara Gordon Batgirl. This is also the girl who could have been Oracle on a different path. I don't want to lose Oracle in her being Batgirl. I want to feel like, just like I didn't feel like we lost Batgirl in her being Oracle. Am I making sense?
Yeah.
In or out of the wheelchair, it's Barbara Gordon. I want to feel that either way. Whatever you're calling her, she should still feel like that same person.
it's the strength of character that you don't want to lose.
Yes.
And it's the stuff that made Barbara Gordon so cool as Oracle wasn't the fact that she was in the chair. It was her character. It was who she was that made, that such a great character, made it such a great, Birds of Prey, made all that stuff so awesome. It wasn't the chair that defined her. It was who she was while she was in the chair. You don't want to lose that same person, and I don't think we will, because we're going to see, we're already seeing, it's that the moment where she kind of has that, freeze up, it's still even, that is understandable. It's still, you get what's going on, where she's at with this. I'm in agreement with you, and I know we're going to find out exactly what happened, how everything played out. So it's one of those things where in the story, I'm just going to sit back, hang on, and enjoy the ride, because another story right out the gate hits you with both barrels, gets you going. It has the moments of, yeah, cool, the, ooh, wow, kind of, it took you through the full emotional gambit.
We got to revisit this more next week, because otherwise we'll never get to League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. If I start, having diarrhea of the mouth, going off on Batgirl, I'm just not going to want to stop like every Gail Simone book that we do. But I do want to say one more thing that I really loved about this issue, and I don't want to wait to talk about it. It wasn't just about Barbara Gordon. It wasn't just about her relationship with Jim Gordon. All those things were there, and I loved them. I love Gail Simone not only introducing new villains and new villain concepts, but also supporting cast. She does this in all of her books. It's one of the reasons why I'm a diehard fan. I loved agreeing with Jamie, the new roommate, but also Officer McKenna, what's going on with her partner. And that sets up a weird dynamic of, this guilt thing that's going to go on, and McKenna, hating her. What is their relationship going to be like? Is McKenna going to realize that it wasn't Barbara's fault? How's that going to be? It was one of those things where, it immediately got me captivated that I've always loved her supporting cast creation, and we're going to talk a lot more in depth about this next week, because I've got to stop there, otherwise I'm going to keep going. But what a terrific opening issue.
You filthy criminals.
Our show voicemail line is 1-440-388-4434 or drnorge on Skype. So please make sure to call in. We'd love having you part of the show. And right now, Jim and I are going to discuss Batgirl #1. Because you guys, it's funny how I wanted to start off this show with voicemails talking about the new 52, because we had so many of them, and they're fresh and right to date. You're going to get a bonus from us this week, because we're going to do this whole episode now is going to start kicking off our look at the new 52. Which is not intended. It just kind of happened. Or Action Comics, we didn't intend to go in depth on this episode. Neither Batgirl #1. We're excited about this. Let's go with it right now, and we'll record League over the weekend, like you're saying, Jim, and we'll come back a little faster with League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, because I think we're going to cram in League if we try to get League in right now, and we're not going to do the second part of that justice. And I also think we're trying to rush through things like Batgirl #1 right now to talk about it next week when we're already there. Gail Simone's the writer. Ardian Sayev, and I know I'm butchering the name, and the pencils were so beautiful in this. Vincente Cifuentes, it's Cifuentes is the inker. Ulysses Arreola on colors. Dave Sharp letterer. Adam Hughes cover art. Katie Kubert assistant editor. Bobby Chase editor. Batman created by Bob Kane. DC Comics proudly presents Batgirl in Shattered, and oh man, what the cover of it! I've seen this cover image. Obviously, we saw the cover images released before, and just seeing that smile on her face, this adventure aspect. I've talked about this in Action Comics. I love the dark nature of the DC universe, because you love seeing these heroes overcome this. But there's something about the energy in a lot of these characters right now that I read this week in the new 52 that it has me excited about reading superheroes and feeling like they bring something better to our world. I loved this issue to death because of that. I loved her in Birds of Prey, and I love when we see that kind of accessible side of her as well. This feels like a younger, fresh version of her as well, a character who I love and adore. I so did not want to lose her in the new 52, and we've got her here, and I want to follow her on that journey. What were your impressions of this? I know, I know we talked about this in the voicemail, but any other impressions you want to add, Jim, before we start really talking about the prologue of this issue?
This was one of those where I had so much anticipation, so much excitement, so much, there was a level of hype going into it. And when a book lives up to the hype, I'm always excited. I went through so many different emotional reactions throughout this, all the way from there was comical, funny moments to that high action. Oh, that's cool! Where it's that great mesh of art and the written word and artwork just meshing, coming together,
and whatnot. I felt like you were hanging on it too.
But seriously, though, man, there was just so much in here that, when we got the voicemail, it was funny. As we're listening to the voicemail, I get up, I walk across the room, I grab the comic, I put it down in front of me because I was like, there's no way we cannot talk about this book.
I had my issue open from Comixology. I pulled it up on the screen because I had it open still from Action Comics, and I clicked on it, opened it up too, and I was like, it was painful for me to try and stop myself during that. And when you said, "Dude, do we just kind of want to just start talking about this?" you had me at did. I'm like, okay, let's go. Because I'm into this. I shared that with you when we were talking Action Comics. That's a very genuine vibe, and this was another one of the books that I was eagerly anticipating. I thought this was going to be my first read, and it didn't turn that way because of the downloads. It wound up being that I got Action Comics first. Those were my first two because I was so curious about what Superman was going to be like, and then I love Gail Simone, so her books are my go-to ones right away when they come out. And this wound up being my second read. What a satisfying second read this was. I love this character of the Mirror, chasing after people who should have died, people who escaped death. And having I'm curious, what does it look like seeing things from the victim perspective on the Mirror end? You know what I mean? What do they see? What are they faced with the Mirror? I love the mystery of this. We talk all the time about how we're fans of that Hitchcock kind of style to it. This building of suspense with this villain. I love. I want to see this Mirror. I'm sure is going to be like an ongoing villain and all that. But wow, and Barbara Gordon's on the list.
Yeah, and I tell you, this opening, killing this old guy who survived a transport, and you'd figure, okay, hey, good luck, you got the pass on life, enjoy, kick back, relax. He looks like a nice, friendly guy who's gardening. No, he gets a very horrific death where he also drowns. And the way, it was just, I love just showing how he drowned. And it's terrible to say. I love seeing someone die. I admit it.
The eyes bugging out and the water coming out of his nose and all that. I know.
Yeah, it was just, once again, this is a beautiful meshing of a cool story, but also just that great artwork that accentuates the story. And yes, it is a kind of a graphic thing where he shoves a garden hose in his mouth and keeps pumping until the dude dies. You see it, but it's not like that over-the-top gore and graphicness that would turn somebody away. It's that kind of compelling, just, oh my God, he's going to kill him like this. Wow. It was, right? And this is the opening setup.
My immediate question during those first two pages was, who did the Mirror lose? Because he's asking this question. Why, Mr. Carter, why did you survive? So who did the Mirror lose in a horrific fashion? Who did the Mirror lose that shouldn't have survived? You know what I mean?
I don't think the Mirror lost someone in a horrific fashion. I think the Mirror lost somebody in an accident, just some freak accident, and that's why he's questioning or she's questioning, because we don't know.
Well, I'm talking about an accident. I agree with that, but yeah. like look at Barbara Gordon. She was shot with a bullet through her spine and all that. Why did she survive that? To then come back and have a life after that. So I'm guessing, these people have something, in common. And I think it's going to be people who went through horrific accidents. Well, Barbara's wasn't an accident, though, Jim.
No, I'm thinking the Mirror was. And that's why I think he snapped. I think that's what, my guess is the Mirrors lost someone they care about, someone they knew, but it wasn't like some, thing. It was just, it just happened. And it's one of those things that life is sometimes not fair.
You
Sorry
survived
for
your
your
sinking
loss.
of the transport ship off the coast of Portugal during routine maneuvers in calm conditions. 27 of your fellow sailors did not. So it's a situation where he should not have survived because of the way that worked out. That's a pretty horrific, because if 27 people died, that's a pretty horrific happening. I don't know. I want to know the Mirror's story. And you know what?
Yes.
Let me take this back the other way. Taking your scenario into consideration. If that's the way it is, I want to know that too.
Yeah.
Like, I care about this. I want to know what's driving the Mirror. I love that I don't know, but I love that instantly, in the first 2 pages in that prologue, I'm wondering what is the motivation behind this person. I know there's something driving it. And that's an interesting story that I want to read along the way. I don't need to know right now. It's kind of like what Jamie was touching on this in his, one of the things I loved about this issue is the questions that were answered, I loved. They got me excited and interested. It's the things that I don't know that have me excited and interested too, because I don't want to find out along the way. And that's part of a journey, And if you spend too much time on that exposition of telling all that in your first issue, you lose the hooks that pull you into following the story. I want action. I want to see, I want to see some guy, with water coming out of his nose. I want to see him become a human slip and slide. That was kind of cool. So I'm into that whole thing. So
anyone offended by Sean's comments, please direct your anger towards him, not me.
What are you, a friend of Graham Carter's or something? I don't know. What is he, like your pal?
Hey, I'm just.
You are aware he's not a real guy.
It's not real to me, dang it.
Like I'm saying this about somebody who really died. Then there's something offensive. What do you think of her costume? Now, this is the costume, Jim. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. This is the costume. Remember we were seeing in the back of Justice League #1, Hal's version? I'm wondering if there weren't elements of that somehow played into Batgirl's costume. Are you following me on the vibe?
Yeah, definitely there's some, kind of tweaks to it, which I kind of like the fact that she did modify stuff, and it's not the traditional Batgirl. It's not the traditional Batman. It's personalized for her. Again, we have the armor look of the costume, which for me is always a must in the Bat family because they are normal people underneath the costume. They need a little accentuations. But for me, the thing I like is kind of how the gauntlets and the boots really seem like a solid metal. Because with me, when I think fighting styles, I'm thinking you're going to be throwing a lot of elbows. You're going to be throwing a lot of forearm shimmies. And when you have the gauntlet, the full gauntlet metallized like this, that's going to add to, one, protecting your arm when you're hitting somebody, but also going to help, inflict a little damage, put someone down a little bit harder. I like seeing stuff like that. I want a Tonight on Batgirl poster. That page, Tonight on Batgirl. Yeah. That smile on her face. That's something, we see those moments with Bruce when he'll, swing along with Red Robin, or we'll see him with the whole team. Remember that issue where it was like the whole family? Yeah. The Bat family was kind of like swinging out. I love those kind of moments. Those one close-up shots. I remember when like Bruce in Dark Knight Returns first put on the costume again, the whole night is mine again thing that he was doing. I forget how that line was actually worded. But when you actually see him, for the first time kind of, swinging into action again from that vibe, I loved every moment of that. This had that feel for me. It's funny. I'm always one that I love traditional Barbara Gordon Batgirl. So I'm looking at the flat boots she's wearing. I'm digging them. And let me tell you why. It's funny how this is from a personal story. My wife got these really cool new shoes. I love them, but they're they've got a big heel. And I saw her. They're larger in the they're like a summer shoe that has like a kind of a raised, not just a raised heel, but also a raised sole in the front as well. So she's trying to remember. As a kid, you had those cups that you could put underneath your shoes, and they raised you up like kind of like little stilts. You know what I'm talking about? You had to use these things as a kid. You know what I mean? Those yellow things, and we tried walking along on them. She was walking like that on them, getting used to them. And I was thinking to myself when I saw Barbara in these right now, I'm like, you know what? I totally get why these are more functional. I love that it still looks like there's something like fun and exciting about her whole costume. It looks different than Bruce's, yet it's got that armored vibe, which I like as well. But it's not overdone.
And I do like that it definitely has a unique flavor to it, but she feels like she's part of the whole family. And I love the coloring of the costume and everything. It just kind of, because hers was more of a yellow before. I'm talking about the alternating color, and this has more of a I don't want to say, it has, well, kind of, there's a taupe vibe to it as well, and I like that. I love the styling. I love the purple in the cape and just everything. I don't know. It really has a nice like, this is a costume I'm totally sold on.
Yeah.
There's no gray area for me on this one. And there's something great about seeing her back in this costume again.
Oh, big time. And I like when she's sitting there opening and she's observing. I like that they showed with the infrared and the thermals that she's the different houses, and just, again, everything with the Bat family you need. You need the tech, you need the prep, you just need the functionality of the costume, where everything's at. Compartments, the belt is a little bit compartmentalized so you can see their stuff there. This is definitely a solid, really cool Bat family costume.
Yeah, I agree. Now, the Brisby brothers, and I love how, the Brisby killers, I should say. Yeah. I love how that wasn't a name that they coined. It was coined because people were trying to figure out their MO, and they got it wrong, and they're like, we're not really limited to a particular graphic region. How kind of them, right?
Oh, no, yeah, they're going around. They're expanding their horizons, and unfortunately, they were stupid enough to come into Gotham.
Right, exactly. And Barbara gets, it's family massacred in the Gotham suburb. Brisby killers likely to perpetuate a second bloodbath. And these people just wind up being that second, bloodbath, or they were meant to be, until Barbara comes crashing in. And I loved in this moment we got to know that her upper arm strength is increased because of the time in the chair. It naturally gave her a stronger upper arm strength. So as she's training and continuing to work out, because that strength is already there, it's about maintaining that strength, building upon that strength, because it's there. So she can do her training and keep pushing herself like she is, and it's going to push that upper arm strength. I love that. I mean, because that makes sense. And it's a tiny detail, but it's something where it's a nod back to her being in the wheelchair all that time.
Yeah.
And something that, people who, work in the wheelchair, they're using muscles that those of us that don't, have to be in a wheelchair don't deal with on a daily basis. So they do have, an upper arm strength that I don't have, you don't have, because of that. So I love that being played into it. I think that was really important in the sequence of events.
Oh, yeah. And it was funny because, we mentioned before how there was some comedy moments, some action moments, and some just holy crud kind of moments. They sequence with these, with the Brisby killers, had all three of those all in one.
Yeah.
You got the goofiness of these guys, kind of their banter as they're planning on murdering and torturing these people. And like, we're going to play with you. And as long as you keep us, entertained, we might not go after your children. We might. And there's just that level of sadisticness, but there's a little bit of humor with it. And then as things are just playing out, that final panel, you see the shadow sweep in the window as Barbara's coming in hard, and she's going to take them down even harder. I love seeing just how this played out, because it gets you so anticipating the beatdown that's about to happen. It's coming. These guys are way too arrogant, way too, hey, yeah, we're awesome. We're going to take you down. We're going to continue with our fun. We're going to, and they're just no concept, the fact that they're in Gotham. They're up against the Bats. They're up against, they're about to find out they're up against Batgirl. I thought that was just a really just cool way to do it. But, I got a compliment on the color schemes, because you have these normal color patterns. Then you get that flash of red. Right as the husband's find out exactly what's about to happen to his family, you can see the rage, you can see the fear, you can see just all these emotions going through his face, and they're even like, hey, you're this is what's going to happen. And I thought that was just a cool, that heavy red focus right in the middle of this page that leads into this great action sequence. Another anticipational kind of, it's like the changing of the music in a movie was these panel laid out.
It's this sequence where you're talking about the shadows when she kind of swooped in with that, but also the sequence where, they've got guns on the family. The guy's got the gun on the family, after she's done her kind of like sweep up. I love that, because that was a typical acrobatic, Bat family type moment there. But her in the dark shadows where, she's laughing with the batarang out, how much she's learned from Bruce. from watching Bruce, yet she makes it her own. That's kind of a key. It's something we always liked about Red Robin. It's stuff we like about Nightwing. The important thing is not having a balance of clearly they learned something from Bruce, but then there's also a unique flavor of their own thrown into there. So you want to find a balance of that where it's cool and neat and it feels fresh and different at the same time. Brian Q. Miller did this so recently in the Stephanie Brown book. And this has those qualities, in the sense that, this is Barbara now, so it's going to feel different than Stephanie Brown. There's a whole different look and a vibe to her, and, a way of operating that's she's more confident than I think what I felt Stephanie Brown was early on, rightfully so. But it's got everything that I liked about that book as well in it. So I think there's a different type of fan that can approach this one, where this could be somebody's first exposure to Barbara Gordon, if they read Stephanie Brown's book, and this could have been their launching point into her. Or this could be a Birds fan who came into this book. I think there's a lot of different accessibility avenues to reading this title. It was funny how, like, in my second read, I've read this one twice, in my second read-through of this one, how first one I was looking for Oracle. Second one, I was like the Stephanie Brown Batgirl fan, like looking for a Batgirl book. Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Oh, dude. And I'm sitting there. It's funny because I keep forgetting this is not a video podcast, because I'm sitting there just nodding my head like an idiot, going, yeah. Because I'm exactly this kind of mindset you're going through, and I was even thinking the same type of stuff with, seeing Barbara fight. She had that improvise, adapt, overcome style that Stephanie, especially at the end of her run, really had going, was something I really enjoyed. She takes the one lamp and bam, bashes the dude's head. The guy grabs her thinking, oh, I got you. Goes, nope. Whoom, does that cool swoop up move and catches him both feet on the chin, drops him. It was just these great kind of boom, 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 acrobatic, constant flow movement. I think of like a Jackie Chan movie where he's fighting and he's doing the bobbing and weaving and jumping through small holes and doing this crazy stuff. She was doing that same style to it, but there was still a level of confidence to her. But she was recognizing in her head, hey, I am a little bit rusty. I should have taken these down. I shouldn't have had this kind of problem. I shouldn't have done that. And she's, kind of in her head, the inner dialogue, we're seeing that she's like, oh, I still got more. I got to work out the ring rust. I got to work this out, but I got to get through. But she still gets the W. She still gets the win. And I like the fact that she was still able to hold on to the positiveness of what she was able to do.
Yeah, I agree with you. And it's one of the things that this is why I didn't want the answers in the, like, I totally agree with what Jamie was saying earlier. I like the vibe that we got little tidbits and pieces of, like, knowing what happened with her and all that stuff. We wouldn't have had this if we spent so much time on, like, giving us all the answers to everything. Because this does lead into, seeing that Killing Joke did happen and that she went through all that. But we wouldn't have had time to have this whole thing happen if you spent too much time on that. So that was a nice balance of, letting fans know, hey, this is what's happened. We're going to keep revisiting this as needed to kind of fill you in on where Barbara is and all that. But I need this moment where I see her operating as Batgirl, because I want to see that well choreographed action, and see her, like you said, the rusty part. I needed that. I like that accessibility. That there's something about that. This is a veteran hero in Barbara Gordon, because she was Batgirl before Killing Joke. She had a career as Batgirl beforehand. That was taken away from her and cut short. Now she has it back again, but, that's, we use wrestling analogies all the time on the show. It's that wrestler who came back from an injury. He's got a little ring rust to work off. It's the same thing with her in this one, and I really enjoyed that about this whole aspect. I love that she's got a Batman poster in her bedroom on the doors.
Now, here's the one thing I was kind of curious about. In the Bat universe beforehand, Gordon did know about Oracle. I wonder what Gordon knows about his daughter, because I'm taking it that this Jim Gordon never knew that she was Batgirl. If Oracle occurred, he never knew about that. He just sees her as his daughter, Barbara Gordon. Never knew any of the other stuff. Are you in agreement?
If he knows, it's something that he's never spoken to her. No, when I say if he knows, it's like deep down we all believe that he's a good enough cop that he probably knows Bruce Wayne is Batman. I take this the same way. It's that part of him that probably denies it to himself if he knows anything from any clues. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
it's his daughter, so you're gonna stop yourself at a certain amount of suspicion of anything. So I'm short answer, yes. I agree with you, but I can't ever just say I agree with you. It's always got to be some
short answer. We have those on this show.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, I love that it takes me 2 paragraphs to say yes.
You know what's funny? One of the things that kind of clicked, the one that we both read Action Comics first, and then the second thing we grabbed was Batgirl. I think that's kind of interesting that we both did that, and we did it for the exact same reasons. But the other thing, another comparison that I really didn't put together in the two, in Action Comics, we got some really cool Clark stories. We got to see Clark Kent, and here we're getting some cool Barbara Gordon stories.
Yeah.
We're getting both in and out of the costume. And I think that's a really great thing that they need to do right from the block, right from the get-go. You got to because there's going to be new readers. There's going to be people who probably never picked up the Bat titles, who never picked up Batgirl, who's reading this, and they got to know who is the person behind the mask. And I was so glad to see these moments between her and her father, between her and her roommate, and just the everything that lets us know who is Barbara, who is Batgirl. I'm really excited about this. And to be honest, these are really the first. This is probably one of the first stories I've ever read where Barbara is, Batgirl. I never read I've never read those things. I think those one flashback sequence that I read where she was remembering a time when she was Batgirl and she and Dick were doing when Dick was Robin and she was Batgirl. But I think that was the only story I've ever really read. I've never read a flat-out Barbara Gordon Batgirl.
When we were kids, did you ever I guess because she would have been Batgirl when you and I were kids.
When we were kids, I never read a girl comic. I fully admit I was immature. Wow. I was a kid. There's no way I would have ever.
Well, no. I'm not saying that. I mean, where she was in a Batman story or anything like that.
No, I do. I have no memory.
Okay.
Past memories of Barbara Gordon as Batgirl. So for me, I'm kind of excited. I'm a huge Stephanie Brown fan. I thought she was a great character.
Me too.
I loved seeing her evolution, but there is a level of excitement for me that I'm finally getting a Barbara Gordon Batgirl story.
Oh, cool. Okay, so that which is coming. See, I read Batman Family as a kid. I loved the extended family and stuff like that of the Bat universe. But it wasn't like today where every character had a book. It was Batman Family and team ups. That these characters would appear in. So it wasn't like a lot of my exposure to characters was either if they appeared with Batman in his title, or in a Brave and the Bold, or especially Batman Family.
Hey, remember. As a kid, I was more of a Marvel guy.
Right.
This was more of a Marvel house. So, it wasn't really until college that I really read DC stuff. So, and she was already Oracle by then.
And I was the house that Batman built.
Yeah.
Well, no, that's not true. Very similar to, my whole exposure. I was also reading Marvel Team Up with Spider-Man.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was all, it was more about the Bat. And that was my loyalty to the Bat. And, his whole universe. And Batgirl because of the 60s show. For the same reason, I loved Yvonne Craig. A very beautiful woman. Played the role just right because she was a dancer. And that was, she did, the whole, seeing this Barbara Gordon so much as a nice nod back to everything that worked with that character set in a modern setting. It was funny. You were mentioning Action Comics before, and there's another connection I'm making between the two. Neither of these books mention each other, nor is there any reason for them to. But they feel part of the same universe. Do you get that vibe? I mean, that's one of the things I really like about all the books. I've read all of the books so far except for 2. And they all feel like they're part of the same universe, even though there's different time frames and time settings for all of them. And it's not because it's forced. It's not because, there's some, there's not a television thrown in a room that has an unnecessary reference to the character. I like when that happens, when there's a reason for the character to comment on something, but there was no reason any of this for any of that to happen. And Superman takes place well before this, obviously, because that's, the start of basically this universe. But there's an energy that makes these books feel like they're part of the same universe. Am I making sense?
Oh yeah, definitely making sense. And yeah, I agree with you. It's both of these do feel like modern stories. It doesn't feel like we're reading anything from the past time. This feels like 2011 to me. This feels like 2010, 2009. This time that we're in.
Now, we got this new this roommate, and Barbara Gordon. And I love that the roommate's got a sense of humor. She's playing off that sigh. Follow me, Barbara Gordon. There's very important early on with a character is you're not forcing us to know the character's personality by spelling it out for us through dialogue, the way she's behaving, acting herself. This is a character who's sure of herself. She's not afraid to have a little bit of a sense of humor. Having a new roommate isn't something that phases her. She's social. Yeah. This isn't somebody this isn't an introvert.
Yeah.
And I like that I'm getting to know this character through her dialogue right in the beginning, and because she's an activist. So this is somebody who's not afraid to get out there and just be herself and let people see that. But I like that I knew that about her before we saw Fight the Power.
Yeah. And she's out there, and it's funny because, like, with the, follow me, Barbara Gordon, then later on she calls her GBG. So I think that's going to be a running nickname throughout the series. It's, just kind of, it was something that, kind of, I was interesting. I was kind of like fascinated by the fact that they're introducing her to a roommate, and immediately the wheels start running. Like, is this going to be a part of the team Batgirl? Is this going to be something else? Are we going to get these interesting stories where she's got to hide the fact? But they initially, right off the bat, said, "Hey, roommate works night. She tends bar. So when Barbara's doing her stuff as Batgirl, she's not going to be around." Quick, easy explanation. There's going to be some overlappings. There's going to be some, hey, how do I get around this? But that's going to come out later, and that'll be part of the story. But, I immediately started thinking, once activists, what's going to happen with the dealings with the police commissioner? What if the roommate starts having issues with the way Jim Gordon's running stuff? How's that going to handle? How is that going to play out? It's stuff like that I want to see, or some of her activist friends come over. And dealings with the daughter of the police commissioner, or maybe this person who's a activist, maybe she's anti-hero, maybe she's anti-vigilante. She could be a big, huge anti-Batman person, thinking that Batman's not a cop. No one elected him. He's this violent person who should be locked up with all the other creeps in Gotham. Who knows where this is going to go, how this is going to play out? It's that anticipation of possible stories like that really have me excited.
It has me excited to find out, did Heidi get punched because of the "Hi, I'm Heidi" desk plate? These are questions that I want the answer to.
I feel bad for Heidi. Come on, man.
She had it coming.
I'm on Team Heidi. I think that was wrong. Granted, he's a hard.
I'm buying you a "Hi, I'm Jim" desk plate.
Thanks, appreciate it, pal.
Name, please. Mirror.
Well, hey, Heidi got it better than that cop.
Oh yes, yeah, she did. Well, although I don't know, those spikes are pretty difficult. I think his was pretty instantaneous. He doesn't have to deal with the after effects of what happened. Heidi's going to wake up feeling very painful in the morning.
Yeah, Heidi's going to.
Is she going to wake up?
Yeah.
Because he hit her pretty good with that.
Yeah, that's a solid punch there. I don't know. Depends on how well Heidi can take a punch.
Yeah. Wow.
Oh boy, this is wrong.
You know what I really loved with the motorcycle?
Yes.
I love the coolness factor. I loved the bats on the tire treads and just the whole look to it. Come to mama, sweetheart. That if I had something that cool, I'd be feeling the same way. The bike was very well drawn. I can still arrive in style, and I love the customization on that, because you realize that tread would be left behind.
Yeah. And
how cool would that be?
Yeah, and it's the customization of it again. Batman's got the Batmobile, she's got her Bat bike, and it fits in. It's a great hiding spot inside the van. Again, just nice laid out, explanation of stuff, how she's able to get away with this. Because you think about it, she's in this apartment complex. She's not going to have a cave. She's not going to have a hidden area. her, she's got a mobile Batcave. She's got her own hidden areas that she's going to be able to use. And who knows, maybe later on we'll get some other place where she's going to be able to put it when she starts laying out the game plan. But the other thing I loved seeing was just as she's approaching that, one, that she had her phone synced up with her dad's. So she's getting all the reports, anything sent to him, she's getting the info. So that's how she's finding out about the stuff. But then as she's approaching the hospital, she's like, hey, cops are going to go into standard mode, standard terror mode. They're going to wait, secure the area, contact, begin the dialogue. That's going to take too long. People are going to die. I need to act now. I'd love seeing that, and I'd love seeing the inner dialogue explaining why she's going in hard and fast.
You know what I'm curious about, Jim? How does Bruce feel about her being back in action? Because obviously, this is if you predate Killing Joke, there was a relationship between the two of them. He knew she was Batgirl, and there's that vibe there. How does he feel about her after recovering, being back in action? Because she was out for years. Throughout the 3 years that she was out of action because of what the Joker did. Now, the bike leads me to believe, and maybe I'm wrong on believing this, maybe she did this on her own with her own money, that Bruce might be sanctioning this, but I don't know. I don't know that the bike, because the motorcycle, obviously, if you are trying to go by yourself, a motorcycle is, she saved all of her money and put it into doing this. She could finance a motorcycle herself, and she's clever enough to certainly pull that off. Because we don't know what financially her life was like in those 3 years. Right. So I don't know that this necessarily means Bruce is driving it. I want to see what that's like. Not that I want to know right now, as it's told in the story. It's funny how I got into thinking about, especially my second read-through, some of the outside questions that normally a great book gets me thinking about. Like, I want to know more, and I'm into it, because, these are, she's having issues, dealing with what it was like with the Joker, and that's stuff that would bother anybody going through what you did, especially with Mir making her face it again. So now, what does Bruce feel about all this? I'm excited. I want to see that when it happens.
Yeah, I took it that because of the hardware, because of the tech she's got, everything that she's got going, she's got the Wayne family backing. She's got the financial and the technical support going on, and that's completely how I read it. Now, granted, she could be self-made. There could be a whole thing going on there that we don't know yet, and that we'll learn later on. I'm like, cool, lay it out. But my initial read-through, my initial vibe was the fact that she was, she had full Bruce's backing. Now,
well, wait, hold on. I don't know that necessarily because Bruce provided that. And I agree with you, that's a possibility. I was thinking that way too. But then I started thinking to myself, did Bruce provide this because he wants to do everything he can to help keep her safe, but maybe he's not comfortable about her operating again? There's a lot of questions as far as what that looks like. I agree with you. It could be 110% Bruce is glad to see her back in action, all that stuff. With Bruce, you never know which way he's going to go. And I don't think we know enough about Bruce, the way he's operating right now, to say either way. Although the guy at the end of Flashpoint, I think, would consider sanctioning this.
Yeah.
I still think he's going to be protective of Barbara, though. That was traumatic on him, too. Some of the talks he had with Barbara over that, and I'm sure over those 3 years, if this was a female friend of yours, and I hate to put it that way, but it's the truth. I'm gonna be more protective of, if it was my wife, coworkers, who are very good friends of mine, I'm gonna be more protective. I think it's a guy's natural reaction to do that. I love the fact that I know, no matter how much I was trying to protect her, Barbara's gonna, show me that I'm wrong, and as she's doing right now, she's right to be out there doing everything she's doing. But I'd be curious to see what that conversation went down like. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and when I say the full backing, I fully agree that there's probably some reserve on Bruce's mindset and just how he is. But I see it that he's like, if I don't back her, if I don't support her, she's going to do this with or without my consent.
That's what I'm thinking.
I got to give her this hardware. I got to help her out, try to keep her safe. And just that whole protectiveness isn't him, hovering over her like a mother hen. The protectiveness is making sure she's got the correct equipment. And he probably laid out, let her use the cave when she started getting walking again, let her train, maybe even hooked her up with some trainers, because there's probably definitely had to have been some type of Bruce helping her out that way, just because of the nature of the Bat family, of just he wouldn't just throw her out to the wolves and let her rot, do whatever you want, kiddo. I got nothing to do with you. So it's definitely is going to be cool to see them together. The other thing I was thinking.
Wait, hold on. Let me.
Okay.
Because there's one more thing I want to say about that before we go on, because I want to take the female end out of it now and go on the guy end. The reason what made me think of that first is I had to think about my own friends in general, taking male, female out of it. If it was a guy friend who'd been shot, and I knew that they were a vigilante beforehand, and they were going back into the game after they got shot, and I was part of it, on some level, I knew about it, whatever like that. I'm going to pull, if it was you, I'll use you as the example. I'm going to pull you aside and go, Jim, you sure about this, bud? Look what happened to you. Maybe it's time for you to hang it up. And there would be the double standard of, if I was still operating and still doing it, I know I'd have that double standard of, saying, you'd come back to me, but you're doing it, dude. Yeah, but and my answer would be, but I didn't get shot and put in a wheelchair for years. That conversation's very interesting. So taking the male-female thing out of it, then the end is I'd have to say, well, what if it was a female friend of mine? I took you out of it, and I'm like, what if it was a female friend of mine? Because I've got coworkers who are very good friends of mine. I'm thinking of my wife, too, on that end of it. So then there's going to be that natural guy kind of protective side that's also going to be playing into the whole thing. And the dynamic is she's ready. She's ready to go. She should be there and doing all that. Just like you, if it was you and you were in that position and you were ready to go, you'd have every right to go do it, too. But there is that look. The friends that were with you during those years, you went through all that. I want those reactions are going to be very interesting, because Bruce is the one. Like, Jim doesn't. That's just it. Jim Gordon doesn't know that Barbara Gordon's Batgirl, because I think as a dad, he would be addressing exactly what I want to see Bruce addressing. How does he feel about all this?
Yeah, he would be massively freaking out if he knew that she was Batgirl and she's back in the saddle again. An
exposition that would derail this issue right now if Bruce and her had this conversation.
Exactly.
So it definitely does not need to be here. These are just questions as a friend that I'm wondering. I know this conversation already happened. And at some point in time, where it fits, if it fits, I'd like to see it. It's not something like right now I want to see her with the mirror and what that is all about. At some point in time, I'd like to see that kind of stuff, There's a lot of things I want to see that I never see. But, because it doesn't necessarily belong. There's a lot of geeky fan stuff that doesn't necessarily belong in the issue to derail the pace. And I'm always a fan of, don't ever derail your pace. If it fits, show us it. If it doesn't, give us that darn good story that makes me not care that I didn't see it. And that's where I'm at. It's a great story that makes me not care what I did or didn't see. I want to follow where the mirror's going.
Amen. Something else as we're talking about how does Bruce feel and all that, it was something that triggered, and I meant to mention it before, when she was talking to the roommate, and the roommate says, I only have one rule, no creepy boyfriends. You don't have a creepy boyfriend, do you? God, I wish. Made me immediately think, what's the deal with her and Dick? What's the deal with her and Grayson? What's going on there? And that was something I was like, what if he shows up and the roommate thinks he's a creepy boyfriend? Or is he creepy ex-boyfriend, or is he an ex? What's going on there? That was another thing that popped in my head. But again, it would have, if she had addressed it, if they had gone anything beyond that one little kind of funny moment, it would have derailed the flow of the episode. Eventually, we're going to find out what the relationship between the two of them are, and I'm looking forward to that.
I love when you call them episodes. And I'm not kidding when I say that. There's times where you jump off and forget that it's an issue and you call it an episode, because it does feel like a program in the way that it's being presented in its flow. So there's been times where I've picked on you mercilessly when you've called it episodes. I'm actually going to go back and say, though, that I genuinely do, because I know you get caught up in the emotion of the moment when you do that. And this had that vibe to it. I
tell you, there's times when, as I'm reading a good story and I get pulled into it, I'm hearing voices in my head. I'm hearing the different, the way different people sound, and you get caught up in the moment. And, this is one that I got really caught up in the moment. There was some stuff in the Batwing and Action Comics I got caught up in it. There was a couple of the stories that I've already read that I was like, man, this really just, had me going. I'm like, yeah.
Does the mirror show them what they should look like? Like what should have happened to them, their fate, what it should have been? Because he says, see your true face, Theodore. I'm just speculating. What do you think that's looking like? What is Theodore seeing? Because he's horrified by what he sees. But what is he seeing?
Yeah, and the old guy in the beginning showed him the same kind of freakiness. So I'm guessing he's saying, see your true face. It's probably how he should have died. So he's seeing this grisly death and this gruesome, event that laid out that should have happened to him that he avoided. Which I'm wondering what's going to happen, when the mirror meets up with Barbara Gordon. That's going to be kind of interesting.
Or does Barbara, how do his powers work? Does Barbara see that? Because, in Batgirl's costume, I'm saying. Does Mirror drive that, or is it, how does that work? What kind of, is it a hypnotic vibe? What's going on with him? You know what I mean?
Well, there definitely could be some type of empathic connection or telepathic thing where it's maybe they're not really seeing it, they just think he's projecting the image in the mind or something, because he points his gun right where Joker pointed it, and that's why she freezes up.
Right.
He does the exact same thing, and he knew instinctively to do that. So, or maybe it was just dumb luck on his part that, hey, he was just pointing the gun, but I don't think so. I think on some subconscious level, he knew to do that, and he was able to do that. I think we're definitely dealing with a meta power.
You let him kill that man. You just watch him die. Now, in Barbara's defense, taking the fact that she's, this trained vigilante out of the whole thing, she had a gun pointed at her.
Yeah.
Any normal civilian has walked in on this situation of trying to help out. If a gun's pointed at them, you can argue that they are right to freeze at that moment. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know if McKenna's. It's funny how that was my second read through. I saw it differently the first time through. I'm like, well, why didn't Barbara do something? Now the psychological aspect always hit me. Yeah. But, McKenna's reaction is something where I'm like, you don't know this girl. She's not a police officer. Why are you blaming her for him being this guy being thrown out the window? She had a gun pointed at her.
The way I always took McKenna's reaction was a combination of the fact that she had just been shot. She just witnessed her partner getting killed. So there was a lot of emotional It's the post-traumatic stress, just that mindset where she's not completely 100%, in her right mind. But also, you look at Barbara.
Oh, wait, hold on, just 1 second. I want to clarify. I agree with everything you're saying. What I'm saying is I was more defensive of Barbara in the second read-through during that. I don't know what it was. I just kind of connected with it in a different way, saying, any normal civilian, and she's not. She's Barbara Gordon, Batgirl. So in that sequence, and I love that her reaction, dear God in heaven, what have I done? She didn't really do anything, but there would be that guilt of, I'm Batgirl, I'm here to save people, this is what I do, and I didn't do it in that moment because I froze. And that's something she's going to have to deal with, the psychological part of that. So I agree with everything you're saying. That's the way I saw it too, but it was funny how I was looking at it from different angles. I actually cared to be this person and then look over at it from this way, and I looked at it way too much.
Yeah.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, also, you look at the sequence before that. Barbara's really talking tough. I don't know who you are, big man, but if you shot a Gotham cop, it's over for you. Back off and assume the position. Right there, she kind of had that police authoritative style to it, and you can kind of see the detective behind her. I want to say in a way maybe relaxing a little bit, saying, "Okay, backup's here." She's got this covered, and when she freezes, when she doesn't move, the cop can't actually react and can't do her job. And I think it's part of
Where do you see the detective relaxing?
What?
Where do you see the detective relaxing behind her?
That one scene where she's like, move, take him down. What's wrong with you? She's no longer crawling for her gun. She's no longer actively trying to take the guy down. That's what I mean by
well, she wasn't actively. She wasn't actively.
Back her heels.
Well, I guess we saw that differently because the last time we saw McKenna, she was getting her face stepped on by the guy's boot.
Yeah.
And then Barbara came in after her elevator ride, which I thought was great. Again, that be a lamb, would you, and hit the button for the 14th floor motorcycle. Yeah. I love the guy's reaction was priceless because that's great art. You just see him a little shot of that guy, but just kind of the shock of the whole thing. But we don't see her. I guess I didn't see her moving, so I guess we read her differently.
Well, and to be honest, I saw off-panel stuff.
Okay.
I put myself in her mindset. As soon as that boot left, as soon as Barbara showed up, the boot left her face, I saw her immediately starting to crawl for her service weapon to take the guy down. That's how I actually pictured in my head what the story was going on.
And see, after the shock of her partner's death, because I agree with you, the end sequence, her anger is due to the shock. And I also think probably her own guilt of not doing that. Because if you take a look at that second last panel, Jim, that's when she's crawling for her gun.
Mm-hmm.
So it isn't until that moment where the guy's been shoved out the window, that kind of, I thought, him going out the window kind of brought her back into the game. That's where her anger kind of pushed herself at that point, seeing this man die, is how I took it. It's funny how you can there's a lot of that stuff that's happening off panel where you see this a little bit differently. Yeah. But her anger, I totally agree with you, her anger was due to the death of her partner. It was due to seeing this guy thrown out the window. It was, due to the mirror's dress sense. I don't know, it's all kinds of different things. I don't know. She's angry, mad about a whole bunch of different things. I don't know. I loved every bit of this issue because there was so much emotion in it, and I'm still thinking about what happened here, what happened in this panel, what's going on at this end. Great, that's to me a sign of a great story. Is Amen. When you actually, and this is it's almost at this point in time that what I say about every Gail Simone issue and why I had so much confidence in this is she just knows how to deliver this.
Yeah, and it's funny because I keep looking through it. I keep looking for the hooded individual, and I don't see them in this.
Yeah, I don't remember reading that person was going to be in every issue. But I might be wrong. I guess I was always taking it as she appeared in Justice League because...
I see her.
Where?
Okay, it's the image that the mirror is pushing the guy out the window when he goes, "Too late, little girl. Look in the reflection on the window."
Oh, good Lord.
Booyah.
Good for you.
I've been going nuts this entire time because when I first read it through... I really didn't look for her. And then as we've been going through, I've been looking. Every one of these panels going, it's got to be.
Did you see her in Action Comics then?
No, I still haven't found her in Action Comics. I was going to go through again.
Wow. Let's look for that. It was funny. I wasn't looking for her because I didn't know this until you mentioned it earlier. So I didn't look for her in Batgirl. But I found her. We went through and looked through. On the subway sequence, when you're on that page where he's trying to stop the subway, the second page... where you see the shot of the three people looking out the window at Superman. Then you go down to the second panel where you see the people outside, like in the office furniture flying all over the place. The third panel on the bottom, in the bottom right-hand corner, at the bottom, you'll see her red hood in the background. She is the second one over from the right. You see her there?
Yep, I see her. Looks like she's standing next to,
Lois and Jimmy are in there holding out of the pole. She's behind behind them.
There's the one lady, her arms are covering her face. There's a guy, slightly balding, dude with glasses, and then her.
Yeah, that's cool.
Oh, nice.
I didn't know to look for her.
Well, now I'm going to. Now we have to.
Yeah.
It's the Where's Waldo?
She's DC's Waldo. I love it. It was a coin toss which book to do between Detective Comics and Batwing, because those are the four you've read so far.
Yeah, those are the only four I've read.
Okay, I just think Batwing because of the new-ish character. We've only seen him appear in there. Let's talk about him because this is this character that's breaking out of Batman Incorporated into his own series right now. I didn't know what to expect. Because, we don't know the character from that. I'm going to tell you one thing. I remember when I turned the page for the first time, literally in this, the first thing that struck me is I really like the art. Like, the art hit me before reading any dialogue, seeing that initial battle that he was in the middle of. There was something about the art and the coloring and all of that just immediately struck me as being something that I really enjoyed. And I don't know if you got that vibe from it, but it was something that struck me at first.
It needed to be something different than I've seen in the other titles.
Yeah.
I needed that splash. We have what I've read in Detective, what I read in Batgirl had a very, very similar kind of style to him. Batwing needed to be different for me because he was such a different. He was a brand new character for me, and I was so glad that there was just that boom hit you. It's one of those things where this isn't the normal art style that I'm behind, but I was 100% behind just opening page on, just because it had a different feel to it. It really laid some cool groundwork and just some cool tone right off the bat, and I was so glad. I was like, oh, this is neat. This looks cool. All right.
The double page of him toe-to-toe with Massacre, that opening where it says DC Comics proudly presents Batwing, the Cradle of Civilization, I really like. When I was already sold to the build-up to that, but then seeing the two of them fight, but today is new. I suppose I will get used to it. I am Batwing, and this is the life I have chosen. That was immediately a vibe of, another sense of adventure, which I really liked. Written by Judd Winnick, art by Ben Oliver, colors by Brian Reber, letters by Carlos M. Mangwal. I hope I'm not butchering that. Assistant editor Ricky Purdon, editor Mike Martz, cover by Oliver and Reber. Batman created by Bob Kane. And the art style for me was right out of the gate what really grabbed me. I liked how we were dropped right into the battle with him and Massacre.
Yes.
And then saw the build up to the battle with him and Massacre. It was good pacing because we're taking a character right away who, I don't know other than some early appearances in Batman Incorporated. So you want to drop me into this feeling of what is it like to watch him fight? What is his whole MO? He's telling you that, I'm got this detective tech armor that I got from Batman, and this gives me a little bit of an edge over Massacre, who you need an edge over with this guy's relentless nature of just coming at him with machete after machete.
Yeah, that was. I was glad when they first announced that. Oh, he's going to have this villain, Massacre. I'm like, oh, okay. I figured it would be a build up. Right from the get go, we're getting this, and again, you're showing the fact that in the Bat family, you do need a little bit of extra. You do need a little bit of toys. But I like that he acknowledged that this guy's got no armor. He's got no high tech, yet he still keeps coming. What is pushing this guy? Well, I like the fact that he recognized that.
Not only that, there's a sense of reason to what he's doing. He recognized the wings, Massacre. Mm-hmm. Incapacitated Batwing with the wings. Looked at it as, this is an area I'm not going to beat his armor, I'm not going to beat his tech, but maybe I can stop him long enough. He wants to kill, to honor them in the blood.
Yeah.
And he's deliberately incapacitating him so he can go kill all the people on the bus. Like, what?
And he wants Batwing to watch him do it.
Yeah.
And not be able to do anything about it. I thought that was just a great, just one mindset of a psychotic, but it's beyond even a psychotic. You can't just call him crazy. There's method to his madness. There's a point behind it. There's something more behind Massacre. He's not just this guy's version of the Joker, where it's just killing for killing. There's something else that we're going to learn who Massacre is, down the line, and we're going to see where this guy comes from and why he does what he does. And it's just. And I'm just getting that feeling just because the way they've already laid out everything, they're showing us, hit us up front with some high action, some cool fight sequences, some great artwork, showing the motion, showing the violence, showing the fighting, but then, let you know there's a little bit more to this guy. There's a little bit more coming down the line. So I really liked how they laid this out, hard-hitting, and then some stories, and then some more hard-hitting action. This was a great layout of a brand-new character, brand-new environment, brand-new story arc.
In Tanasha, we get to see 6 weeks ago some earlier earlier cases of Batwing where he's fighting drug warlords and things like that outside the Democratic Republic of Congo. He's, trying to clean things up, do what the original edict was that Bruce was helping him with to begin with. And I really liked how that sequence of events led to a team-up with him and Batman. Mm-hmm. Who's coming to check up on him, really seeing what it's like when Bruce travels around to check out some of these agents. Because we know that there's an end game coming with Batman Incorporated. Bruce is gathering these people together, helping prepare them. So it isn't just a, hey, I'm going to give you some stuff and leave. It's a, how is it going? What can I do to support you further? How can we up the game in the area that you're in? So, he's building soldiers for something. And I liked how that was kind of it wasn't in your face, didn't need to be, because that's going to be dealt with in Batman Incorporated. But enjoying the Batman Incorporated story like I am, this was something that I really liked being subtly referenced in this sequence of events.
Yeah, I liked how he was laying it out there. Again, inner dialogue along with the action of the Tiger, blasting people, and Driver driving through pitch black, dark of night conditions where the guy really couldn't see. He's like, gun it, gun it, gun it. He's like, I told Batman, a guy dressed up in the bat isn't going to scare people. They've seen too much. He responded with, it's just how you sell it. And it was a great moment. Bam! Sudden flash, pops in, flips the vehicle, hardcore, hit him hard and hit him fast. I thought that was a really cool introduction to who Batwing was. Nice way of just kind of like, hi, guess what? You're screwed now. I loved it.
I really like his mode of operating. We've seen Nightwing before in Bloodhaven operating as a police officer. In this world, it's a little bit different. I like how he's operating as a police officer and deliberately laying clues in places where he's trusting the capabilities of officers who aren't, it's in the ocean of this inept and corrupt law enforcement of the city. She's trying to swim in cleaner waters, assuming that she's going to at least discover the clue that he left out there. Mm-hmm. But even in her case, he's kind of hoping for her to step up her game. He's trying to, in his own way, be an agent of change in this area by leaving clues, enabling and empowering. And I like that aspect of him, that he's doing things both in and out of costume to better this place. It's kind of a cool thing. Tanasha.
And I tell you, I think one of the things I also liked when we're seeing just the level of violence, the level of nastiness that is Massacre, because you have this blood tiger, ruthless drug lord, ruthless killer, hardcore, nasty person. He is afraid of Massacre. What would instill fear in a guy like this? And you see him even sitting there begging, kill me fast. I don't want to be butchered like a cow. And, as Batwing starts investigating, and he sees what what Massacre did to his people. Just nasty, just hacking up bodies, lopping off heads, writing various scripture, various sayings on the wall in blood, setting up an altar out of the people's limbs. He went above and beyond nasty and just violence to get his point across. And I thought that, again, different town, different city. You got to have your own feeling to your own villains. You got to have your own vibe. And right from the get-go, I'm like, man, this is awesome, because it's another corrupt town. There's more corrupt politicians, corrupt police officers, and there's just so much negative stuff that you can go with, but you have the hero who's still focusing on what is good. Looking at that cop saying, hey, you're a better cop than this. Come on, you can do it. Put the pieces together. And he's just laying it out there and trying to inspire and instill, just motivate those great qualities that are in that person that he knows are in these people. And I thought that was just a great way, and it was really cool stuff. I really got into that, seeing him try to, inspire and not just beat up people.
I also liked when he chose the person to trust to hire and put into his employ, like this Matu Ba. Yeah. From the Children's Harbor, a child soldier rescue organization. You would look for the positive people who, are looking for change, because obviously that's a guy who's also looking for change in their area. Why is he a part of that organization? Because he wants to help these kids, come in some level, hopefully rehabilitate and maybe have some chance at a normal life after that. And this would be somebody who, when you've got Batwing who's trying to make a change, you would hire this person to be a part of what you're doing as Batwing, because there would be some commonalities between the two of you as far as in your goals and what you're trying to do. I just liked that. It was something that was interesting.
Oh, definitely. And it was kind of neat seeing, the fact that he had his haven. He didn't have his Batcave, but he had his haven. You see the similarities to Batman, but he's not going to be a carbon copy. He's not going to be a clone of Batman. He has to have his own style. He has to have his own way of doing things. And even, Matubai, sat there and said, hey, yeah, you've got this great hardware that helps you, but the hardware can't work on its own. you did think of this yourself. You did do some processing. You did do this. And he's also, making sure Batwing, encourages Batwing, making sure Batwing's not just like, oh, it was all Bruce, it was all the tech, it was all Batman stuff. No, you're doing this along with it. The machine needs you. And I thought that was a cool point for him to bring up. We always talk about great Alfred stories, and when we see Alfred and Bruce together, I have that same kind of feeling and same kind of vibe that you get from him. This is a good, solid support unit that he's going to have to rely on. Plus, with what he's dealt with, with the children's, the child soldier rescue program, that they deal with some very nasty life experience that these kids have gone through. It's,
do you know about this? I mean, have you read up on some of this stuff, or at least?
Oh yeah, well, it's specifically if this is a real organization, name of an organization, I do not know, but I know of organizations like this. One of the things that happened, and still is happening over there, was little children are being recruited for these armies, for these drug lords, for these warlords armies, and so you got these kids who should be elementary age, junior high age, actually even elementary age is probably a good analogy, going around with AK-47s, with assault rifles, or even without any armament, running in front of the army drawing fire. You have these little kids who are being asked to do these horrific things, and they're doing them because they got nothing. The rest of their family's been slaughtered. They watched their family get killed, or worse, who knows what, possibly could have happened. And these kids just live these nasty night lives that are just horrific nightmares. And organizations like this try to rescue these kids. You got to first get them away from the warlords. But once you do that, the mental damage that's been done to this kid, because he was turned into this sadistic killing machine. How do you take a kid and make him a kid again? Get him to play, get him to react and interact with other children normally, like in a friendly, comfortable, confident way, and just there's so many different levels of what you have to do to help these kids mentally, physically, emotionally. There's this huge stuff, and it's a nasty business. And for somebody who's able to continue and work with that, it takes a tough character and a tough conscience. I honestly would love to say I could help these children, but I don't know if I'm strong enough of a person that they're, the terrible stuff ordeal that they faced, I don't know if I could, keep a positive attitude, keep things and keep working at just like it's, the patron saint of police officers is St. Jude. He's the patron saint of lost causes. And it's, that constant, never-ending, constantly dealing with, something that's never going to stop. These people are dealing with that type of just, it's never going to end. It's never going to stop. Maybe we'll save this one, but we got hundreds who we're not going to be able to save. And they can face that and keep going. It's amazing people who are able to do this kind of stuff and who are able to every day get up and face this and say, every day, I'm going to save someone's life. I'm going to help somebody. I'm going to try to make their life better. And I was so glad that they brought a character like this into this story. You need somebody like this, and I'm really looking forward to seeing where this guy goes, because he's an Alfred type of character, but he's going to be so different and so much, other side of, that Alf that we're not going to see from Alfred.
Yeah, that's I 100%. I was just like soaking in everything you're saying, especially because I don't have a history with knowing about that world. I think you need to have a calling for anything like that, where you're dedicating yourself to the service of helping others. I think you also need to have proper training, psychological background, things like that. I think it takes a very special kind of person to try and help people in those situations. As a teacher, you have an opportunity to work with a lot of specialists for a variety of different reasons who, are either working at the school or come to the school in situations where there's a child of great risk or great need and things like that. And you just see that, those people are, dedicated to those specific causes, or, parents who are very dedicated to children who, have needs like that. I'm not talking about that particular situation, but you know what I mean. Different extreme circumstances where there's dedication. And it was something I was just like totally soaking in as you were talking about it. One thing I liked that this book did is I like that it kind of reminds us that Grade 10 did this a lot, I like that miniseries a great deal, where it explored that there is a history to the world other than America. Yeah. You know, I mean, and that's and I always assumed that, but you know, these are stories that haven't been told. So this is kind of cool. This Earthstrike in the Kingdom, the fact that they've been operating post, like when Superman and Batman were on the scene and started to become legends. It would make sense that there would be other people who would like take that image and kind of make it their own and use it differently, and that's how the Kingdom was formed. You know, so the question is, did the Kingdom head down a path of corruption after they did what they did? What happened there? You know, I'm very curious to see what happened to Earthstrike, because it says, why does one of the greatest heroes to ever serve this continent die mutilated among the criminals? And I like how he says there aren't going to be simple answers there. What's going on? I love that kind of inner dialogue to the whole thing. Of course, you know, hopefully he'll be around for next issue.
and let me just say, I see our hooded friend in this issue.
Oh, I wasn't even looking for that yet. Where?
Well, it's the page.
Oh, I see it right there.
Right by the police car, as it's right after we had that whole event in the Haven. When you flip the page, the very first panel, top of the page, you can kind of see the hooded outline standing next to the police car. I think I was like, it was funny because I completely missed her the first time, and it wasn't until our going through this time I'm like, ooh, I better look for her, and sure enough, right there, I was like, oh, okay, cool.
I'm so glad you told me about this, because I did not look. This is the reason I'm going to go back and look through every book now.
Yeah.
To find her. I didn't know to look for her, so I didn't see her.
And to be honest, I believe it was... I read it on our forums. I was on the forums. I can't remember who said it, and I do apologize.
Yay to members of our forums for pointing this out. I think it's very cool. Yeah, he got run through. Now does that takes place...
before his fight with so that's how I took it, because this was all started the before time. So this fight took place. Well, if you want to call it a fight, he took a sword, he took a machete through the chest. So that took place before his altercation that's at the beginning of the book.
Right.
Now, and again, it was another thing where we talked about the previous other two books where, we got to see, what Barbara's like. We got to see what Clark's like. We're still getting to see that. We're, again, brand new character. We saw him in action as Batwing. We're getting to see, understanding of who this guy is outside of the costume. We're seeing how he's not just about, beat up the bad guys, put them away. He wants to bring about the change. He wants to bring back his people. He wants to strengthen, who they are, strengthen their character. It's definitely, the ideology that I want to see in my hero is that they inspire hope, that they try to, that they're there for us, that there's something, they're at a level that I have not achieved, but I would like to achieve. And we're seeing that in this guy's dialogue where he's saying, hey, I gotta, we can work with the police. He's giving them the things. There's so much good in these people that he can, trying to bring that out. And I like the fact that, we see that in him. We see this character. We see who he is, coming through in the pages. And again, another book that, as I was reading it, I had very strong emotional reaction to this. Had me very excited to read the next stuff. See how he deals with, what happens with the slaughter of the police officers. What happens with that bus. There was so many different stuff. Plus, then you have that whole Kingdom stuff. What's going on with them? Where do they play out? What happened? Did they fall from grace? Were they being set up? Was he there trying to work undercover? What's going on? There's so many questions that's got me into it, but I already have an emotional connection to this guy. One issue in, I want issue 2. I want issue 3. It's very excited for this. I was kind of anticipating this because it's Judd Winnick and I really like his style, and I think he produced for me.
Now, we know he doesn't have a sternum, but does he have legs? And I'm being serious about that. This is a newer character that we're saying, not the sternum part, but, one of the things we got to look at with some of these new characters that are being launched into books or characters that haven't been in books for a while is, does this character have legs? I think he does. I love the setting. I love the supporting cast. I love the opportunity to really, kind of open us up to, a whole new part of the DC universe that I like that, immediately he established that it wasn't just Batwing. There is other history here. And then why did Batwing take under the role that he did is he's in a place where there were heroes to look up to, and that might inspire somebody else to take that action. You know what I mean? He's not the first. There were others there. I like that. I mean, so this is a book that I'm very curious to see what else we don't know about this area. Was the Kingdom the only team that ever operated there, or the only heroes? What does that look like? There's a lot of history that can be gradually revealed in this era as you move forward as well. So I don't know. I'm into this, but does this book have legs for you?
Oh, definitely has legs for me. As I said, I'm into issue 2, issue 3, issue 4. I'm in solid on this thing. And it's funny because the more we're talking about it, the more I start thinking because, with the Kingdom, they brought about the freedom. They brought about, it was beyond just taking down criminals. It was a political revolution. It was they fought the fight for the people. So then you got the whole political side of it. There's going to be, this book has, the openings for some political intrigue as well. So it's not just going to be a typical superhero story. There's going to be levels to, where this goes, especially as they're starting to introduce some of these old Kingdom heroes that did this great thing and then just disappeared. To me, that's always rings of government cover-up. It rings of, what's the power? Do they not want to have this out there? Do they want to control the people a little bit more? Where and when did they go? Why did they do it? There's so many different stories, questions that are being asked for me, not just about him, but about again his supporting cast. So this definitely has legs for me. I definitely see potential, and if this is a book that people skipped over, thinking I don't know if I want it. I tell you, this has all the really cool classic Bat family stuff, but it's in a personalized for a different environment. And I think that, for me, is the important. Batwing needed to be a little bit different, but it still needed to be part of the Bat family. And definitely, for me, completely meets all those criteria.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't have much else to say other than that. I really enjoyed the book. It was one of those. It was in one of my first reads. It was the short list of ones. I think because we've been talking so much about diversity and new characters and things like that, this was one of the books I was interested in. Men of War, in many ways, interested in because it was, again, a title. We haven't seen a war book monthly in a while. And, I was curious to see what that was going to be like. These are the kind of titles that, just as much as I'm interested in, traditional characters like your Green Arrows and stuff like that and how they're being reworked and Batgirl coming back and things like that, I'm interested in some of these new titles where they're trying to explore avenues and places of the DC Universe that we haven't seen in a while. This was really great.
It's funny because this was my third read. This was the number 3.
Same with me. We read in the same order.
The exact same order, man.
Yeah. This was right after Batgirl for me, and I think it was funny. Not because I wasn't interested. I love Detective Comics. I love Bruce and all that. I think I was just curious because of the this being a new character, and we'd talked so much about this type of thing on the show that I was curious about this, and it was one of the books. Men of War was on my short list as well because it's a war book and just something I'm like, oh, what's it like to read this again? Because I remember Sergeant Rock as a kid. I was curious to see what that would be like in modern day. So we'll definitely talk. I know you haven't read that one yet.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's on the next couple list. I got to finish up Stormwatch, and then I'm going into Green Arrow. Then honestly, I didn't know where I was going to go after that. I may go Men of War. I may go Animal Man because you raved about it. So I'm thinking I may go Animal Man after Green Arrow. Yeah,
it's I got to be honest with you. There's only 2 I haven't read so far, and you can't go wrong with any of them. And I'm literally not just saying that. So it's one of the things people got to remember when you listen to the show. We don't work for DC in any way. Yeah. We're just fans. So, to throw that out there was something that was what's really satisfying for me on this one. Like, if you were to ask me right now to give you a read order that you should go through, I couldn't give you one because it was really an entertaining week of diverse reads. Each book, talk about diversity in titles. That's why I'm saying it's not just about the character themselves having a diverse background. It's each book like we just went through 3 books. Each one of them felt very different. And 2 of them were bad books that clearly are very different. So, I mean, that says a lot, and that's really, I think, important for each title to have an identity and a feel, yet they all feel like all 3 of these books, same thing I just said about comparing Batgirl and Action Comics, I do feel this feels like it's part of this universe, and aside from the little lady who popped up in there that I didn't know she was even there, it feels that way because of just... It feels like it's part of this exciting world I'm very curious as to what this world looks like.
Here's an interesting thing. It's just a notion that just popped in my head. In this book, we have an appearance of Bruce, as Batman. He does make a quick appearance in there. For me, it was cool to see him in there because, Bruce is cool, but I didn't need to see him. Just his inner dialogue reference to Batman was enough for me. But, I don't think they needed to put him in. But again, it didn't throw it off. It didn't sideline it because it was just a boom appearance. He had his inner dialogue, where he was discussing him. Whereas we said with Batgirl, Bruce being in there would have kind of thrown things off because there was so many unanswered questions we would want. Here... it kind of fit into the story, and it did, flow with it, and they didn't overdo it. They didn't, it was a presence, boom, it was referenced, mentioned, in, bam, bam, done, move on. I thought, again, it was a great, feel to keep it all Bat family related, but have its own personalized, personalized style, but it still had that same Bat family story, what I want from a Bat character, what I want from these guys.
I agree with you. Jim, I want to shout out something. I want to make sure I shout this out beforehand. One of our listeners, Scott Edward, is started up a blog. It's called the Fandriod Apocalypse, and he has a real cool article, which I'm just browsing through right now just because he sent this link, and I want to make sure. I always like to shout out anything that listeners and friends of the show send us that they're doing because I think it's good to get the word out. And his first article is called Too Cool for Clark, where he's talking about his experiences as a youngster where... it was, was he too cool for Superman? You know what I'm saying? As opposed to some of the maybe like the darker characters that, maybe don't have the Boy Scout experience, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And so he's got a real interesting article about that. And I don't want to say more about it. Go ahead and read it. It's at Fandriod, Fandriod, blogspot.com, and there's a link right in the show notes. So I just wanted to shout this one out, and thank Scott for his support of our show, and hope you guys look for it. So it's kind of cool. It's kind of a cool thing I wanted to make sure to make a mention on the podcast.
Holy caffeine!
Jim, our next episode, we promise, will be League of Extraordinary Gentlemen Part 2. We'll actually record that this weekend. So I want to thank all of our listeners for your patience with our tangent on this one. This was totally unexpected for us, just as it is for a lot of you who are expecting Part 2 of this. But, I think you can tell from this episode why we ended up going this way. And we'll also be having Ted Sikora on as he talks to us about Apama Issue 2. And I will be coming back a little earlier with that episode, so... I don't know what release date yet. It all depends on how things work out with me editing that one, because I really want to get that one out nice for you. But that will be coming out sometime before next Thursday. So I want to thank everyone for your patience. And our sponsors for this episode are DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. I do want to announce over at DCBService.com, they are once again doing all 52 of the DC's new number 3 titles for 50% off. That's only $79.74. So for those of you that are doing pre-ordering and you want to make a decision as the month goes on as far as which titles you're going to keep and things like that, this is a great opportunity to be able to buy all those titles at a 50% off discount and then make a decision on how you want to budget it. They also are a DC Comics digital partner. They have a Comixology also digital store, so it's not just DC. Any of the purchases that you do from their digital store, credit goes towards DCB Service for that. So please consider, if you're buying from the app, it doesn't cost you any more to buy it through DCB Service's site. Please consider stopping over there and making some of your purchases through friend of the show, DCBService.com. Over at InStockTrades.com, Batgirl, Showcase presents Batgirl Volume 1 trade paperback, $16.99 regularly, 38% off, only $10.53. And Batgirl, the greatest stories... Stories. I'm inventing new words, Jim. And Batgirl, the greatest stories ever told, trade paperback. $19.99 regularly. 38% off, only $12.39. Whether you like stories or staries, InStockTrades.com is your trade paperback source. And remember, orders of $50 or more give you free shipping.
Is it a stary to heaven?
It is a stary to heaven. I want to thank DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com for supporting our show, and we will see everybody soon with our next episode.
Bye!
Flying through space and time, 1,000 different lifetimes. Faded for love and flaws and incredibly clear sightlines. Swinging your mace around, such a practical outlook. Helping the JSA and occasionally supporting your own book. Hawkman, Hawkman, eagle eyes can't see. Hawkman, your plan and what you do to me. Hawkman. The villains are closing in, be they Thanin Guard or Egyptian. Working so hard to thwart you and Hawkgirl's mission. The odds are not on your side, and danger seems to stack up. Things would be so much easier if you would just call for